cold, hard. I apologize in advance if I am out of line here.
Brace yourselves, boys. We're going in.
Am I hallucinating here? Just what in the hell do you think you're doing?
I can't believe you.
I'm not reading. I'm just looking at the pictures.
Welcome to the cold, hard truth on sports.
Welcome, everyone, to another week of the Cold Hard Truth on Sports. I am your host, Matthew Long. I am joined by my co-host tonight, Kevin Krest. How are you doing tonight, Kevin?
I'm doing well, Matthew. How are you doing?
Doing great. Got a big show ahead of us tonight. Kirk McKnight, author of The Voices of Baseball, will be joining us at the top of the hour to talk a little bit about his book and some of the experiences that he's had talking with some of the most famous broadcasters in history. The Voices of Baseball, I understand, is the newest book. He wrote one, The Voices of Hockey, as well. So huge. He's huge into broadcasting. So it's nice to have somebody on it's kind of has written a book about broadcasters. I don't know anybody that's ever written a book about a broadcaster. Do you, Kevin? Anybody come to mind?
No. I was looking at that. Think about the wealth of knowledge of gaming. You think about guys like Fred Musburger, Bert Lundquist, guys like that. Guys like talk to Bill Costas and Keith Jackson, all those guys. The stories they have, and the experiences they've been able to narrate to the sports public. It's awesome.
And I really look forward to having him on. I know I did a pre-interview kind of conversation with him. I found myself talking a lot about the P.K. Frazier novels because, again, he wrote about, he wrote about the voices of baseball and P.K. Frazier. And because the funny thing is, I told him the story about when I was reading the first book and the experience I had where P.K. Frazier was in Lincoln calling the Nebraska-Kansas game with the upset, the real names and everything. And I just started Googling. I'm like, is this guy real? I was like, I remember you saying it was a fiction book, but it was like that stuff really happened. I know because I was there. So it was kind of gave me goosebumps. I'm like, I started Googling it and all I could find was your book. And that's when I asked you, is he real or he's a character? You're like, no, he's a character. He's a character. And then you explained like the historic novel kind of concept to it. And I was like, oh, okay. That makes sense. I feel like an idiot. But I like to share that with people, It's I'm impressed with it.
When I in the fact, most of the sporting events are actual, factual reenactments of the games themselves, and even
Mm-hmm.
in some of the fictional parts where I in the early books, I had the college football playoffs starting in 1998, but even some of those games were bowl games that actually occurred among teams in those time frames. So kind of fit the bowl games into the playoffs. So much of the sports were actual scores and actual games, and I kept that thing as I worked through the novels. In the fourth novel, Big Race is going to be more of a golf thing. So you'll see some of the same themes going through that. In fact, just a little bit of teaser in the book, the latest book we released later this year. Kate Frazier plays the U.S. Open qualifying event at Hunter Green Country Club in Tampa. Okay.
I know right where that's at.
I know. I used to be a member there. And so I know the course very well. And in fact, in the year that very interesting to people kind of find themselves in there. But, so I try to put as much facts and realism as I can into the book. And as you know, you've read this, a couple of books, that there is kind of a realistic feel to that, especially around
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I don't know. I'm looking forward to the new book. I haven't read a ton of books on golf. You know, I've slowly trying to get back out there and hit more balls around. You know, people tend to want to read or interact with things that they're active with. So to kind of motivate myself to do more golf, I remind myself how much my swing is like Charles Barkley's, and I should fix that. That's probably
and that's not a great look. I mean,
it's
I gotta tell you,
it's not.
yeah, that's not what I would intend to want to compare yourself.
I don't.
So Charles Barkley's a very entertaining character, right? Especially this time of year, given all the Capital One,
Yeah.
all the Capital One commercials that he has. No, that's not a good golf.
You know, I don't know how it even came to that. You know, it devolved. You know, it was fine when I was young and golfed and won leagues, but now, 15 years later, my body, I don't know what the heck's going on. I don't know. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I look non-athletic at all. Like, if I watch me just do a golf swing, I'm like, yeah, that guy doesn't play sports ever. Like, if I watch that, but anything else, we're like, yeah, he's an athlete. But just watching the golf swing, yeah, no, he probably uh, does IT work. He's just an IT guy, which I know you are too. But most IT guys aren't also avid golfers.
I manage a bunch of my professionals. I am not myself much of an IT person, although I manage the function, which puts me in they're all talking about Star Wars and Game of Thrones and all the science fiction stuff, and they're talking about video games, and I'm talking about May's last second shot for Carolina Sunday night, and I'm talking about the U.S. men's national team having to win tonight in Panama, and they literally look at me like, we don't know what you're talking about, we don't know who you are, but if you give us what project we're supposed to work on, I'll listen to you, because they actually call it, it's really funny, they call it sports ball. That's what they call it. They say, oh, Kevin's talking about sports ball again. And so it's a joke, it's sports ball. And one of the guys has the name for the Super Bowl. He calls it the premier sports ball pageant. That's what he calls it. So this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I live with on a day-to-day basis.
You know what? I think we could use that, and you wouldn't get sued for calling it March Madness. You know?
Sports ball pageant. I should rename it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I should get out there and copyright that. You know, just like was it Pat Riley that did the 3-peak thing?
Yeah.
Makes tons of money off that, right? And by the way, on that subject, we're going to talk about this a little bit later. Just talk about making money, and we're just kicking off the show. But do you realize how much money Jerry Jones has made off these new stadium deals in Las Vegas and in Los Angeles? Were you aware that his stadium concession company has the contract for those two stadiums?
I learned that today in my show prep.
Yeah. Did you read the Forbes article? Yeah, I read this in the Forbes article.
Part of it.
About the stadium revenue, okay? I like Jerry Sudbury. He's a great business man, but this kind of smells. It smells to me. I don't know if it smells to you. And plus, he's also using the benefits of $6 million in franchise rotation.
Yeah.
All the owners are going to get. They don't
That's
share that.
that's non yeah, it's not shared. Exactly. That's incentive to have all the owners say yes. Well, all but one. Just to kind of update, 31 out of 32 owners said yes to the Oakland Raiders moving to Las Vegas to become the Las Vegas Raiders, to join the now NHL team, who finally, after several months of swirling rumors and bickering, they've come to the Las Vegas Golden Knights in the Silver State. I thought they would go with the Silver Knights because I saw the logo and I just thought, oh, that looks like UCF or Army. But again, that's me. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Kirk, I was talking our guest who's coming on here in about 15 minutes or so at the top of the hour. Kirk McKnight. We were talking a little bit about it, the naming process that they were going up with, and all the time of them trying to figure out the name. Then the NFL says, "Hey, let's have a stadium there," and then they forgot, evidently, that we need to name our hockey team that is going to be drafting this year. You know, it's
So in our topic for the next 20 minutes is the Raiders moving to Las Vegas. So, actually, there's been a lot of back and forth. I've listened to a lot of conversation the last couple of days on Sports Talk Radio and read a lot. You know, what are the ramifications of this in your mind? What does this really mean, if anything, to the NFL, to Las Vegas, to sports gambling? It's a very complicated issue. What is it on your mind? What did you think about when you first started? Oh, this is actually happening.
Yeah, from my experience with and research and stuff that I've done that's relating stadium deals, including with the fiasco that's going on here in Tampa with the Rays now, it's kind of things have kind of sped up. In the past, it was every 25 years or so that they want a new stadium. The Raiders had been in a stadium, frankly, since it was built in 1960s. And it was the building that they used before they left and went to Oakland. And then left and went to LA, and then they moved back into their old stadium. Like, who does that? Here we are in 2017, and there's parts of the season that they're still sharing that there's dirt. There's infield dirt from the Athletics on the field in a pro football game. Like, they shouldn't be sharing baseball stadium and football stadium at this point. As far as a brand, I know Forbes rates them the number 20th top brand in the NFL. Again, that's based on valuation, where the brand reaches. I think it's much larger than that because you see Raiders fans everywhere. They're a very notable brand name. But as far as revenue goes, they're dead last. They've been dead last in the NFL for years. And that's one thing that Robert Kraft and Jerry Jones kind of talked about. I think more so Robert Kraft. Like the Cowboys, I think they make $750 million a year in just straight revenue that has nothing to do with TV money, where the Raiders are 300 million, which is a lot, but still it's not enough. Yeah.
The Raiders are dead last. It's just under $70 million in stadium revenue, which includes ticket sales, parking, etc. So, in my mind, the NFL has become a television product. The stadium piece has become somewhat secondary in terms of, if you think about the Raiders, they get $250, $60 million a year from shared television money, and less than 70 from stadium revenue. So this whole play to go to Vegas is to try to get that city revenue up. And I kind of understand that.
Well, they want to host a Super Bowl. That's what it is. Here's the thing: is I got no. They won't. The NFL won't. The NFL has already been very forward. You have to have a brand new stadium or a really, really great upgrades. And they're looking at building a new stadium at $1.9 billion. You know.
I was there 20 years ago at a baseball game. 20 years ago, right, at a baseball game, and the thing was a tune. I mean, and we're 20 years later, they've done very little to upgrade that stadium complex. So part of it is, okay, we get a deal that has some public financing that goes to it. Now, personally, if you know this on my blog, I am not a proponent of public financing for stadiums. I am not. I think there's a lot of better things that can be done with hundreds of millions of dollars in the community than to line the pockets of a billionaire just paying millionaires, right? For something that should be paid millions of dollars for. I mean, that's my personal.
And from an economic point of view, there has never been a stadium that has been built that has actually repaid the tax money, that has made it worth it. Like, for example, out of this deal here, so the Raiders deal, what they're looking at is, let me grab it real quick. They're looking at out of public money, it's $650 million in public money that they're going to get for it, and it's going to take let me see here, 450. Hold on, my screen keeps moving on me. It's touch screen. Okay, so it creates 19,000 new construction jobs and 6,000 new permanent jobs is what they're estimating, and will draw 450,000 new visitors to Las Vegas each year, which brings about $35 million in annual public revenue. Now, at $35 million a year, now if that's accurate, that means it's going to take them 21 years to pay back the roughly $650 million that they're getting in public money, right? Now, this isn't including, again, this doesn't include $899 million in highway upgrades that that Nevada Department of Transportation has estimated they're going to need to make to facilitate transportation and traffic to and from the new stadiums and all the new 450,000 visitors. So it's costing a lot more than what it does to build it. And this is where, from the economic side, from the greater picture, the macro side, it doesn't make so much sense.
Well, but let's clarify something. That public money coming from Las Vegas is primarily going to be generated from an increase in hotel room tax.
Yes, that's correct.
Las Vegas has a rather unique situation where it's largely, their economy is largely driven by the casinos and that. So, that increase in taxes on the hotel rooms is going to be borne not by Las Vegas residents, but by the visitors.
By the visitors.
Right?
Yep.
Right. So in that respect, I have a problem with that as much, because if I go to Las Vegas, I'm going to be there this summer for a few days. I won't even notice that as a visitor.
Yeah.
I won't notice that. So my bill, they're paying $49 a night per room, which I usually do. I stay at the Flamingo, and if my bill is now $50.80 instead of $49, and it adds up pretty quickly, I won't even care. I won't notice. So I don't have a problem with that. what I had a problem with the St. Louis situation where they were trying to shake down the residents because they don't have any economic
Yeah.
or visitor opportunity.
Well, they were taking local, state, and federal money. They were reaching for everything they could get.
Yeah. And so in Vegas now, the problem the question I have with this whole deal is that the Raiders are having to borrow $150 million to make this happen.
Yeah.
And that's the part I'm going, wow, because they have to pay that relocation fee of, I think it's $500 million.
$500 million. Plus, here's why it's 2 years. They have, I think, 60 some million or 6 million. I forget the exact figure. Some millions, multiple millions of dollars in loans that they already owe that they have to settle before they move. So they have millions of dollars they have to settle before they can even move to Las Vegas.
This deal, I'm not sure this deal is totally done in terms of financially for Mark Davis and the ownership of the Raiders. And if I'm not mistaken, the Davises are just a majority owner. There's a lot more interest in this than just them. But the fact that the owners approved this 31-1 is only because
Jerry Jones brokered it.
Million. Yeah, they just want the non-shareable relocation revenue, and they're saying, "What the heck? We're good. We're gonna reap all this." And by the way, that's the third deal in 15 months because the Rams and the Chargers also relocated. So yeah, it starts to smell for me a little bit, and plus the fact that Jerry Jones has a business interest in these stadiums.
Yeah.
He's not an executive, and he's the guy that was driving it. He was a real proponent of it. No, I get it.
And we found out today, the Forbes article said he was the driver behind the new Levi Stadium as well. And it was kind of from my show prep, is what I understand is he didn't want the Raiders in San Antonio because that would infringe upon the Cowboys. And it's actually a better interest for him to be in Vegas because it's still kind of within their region, their market region there. He didn't, and again, from a business standpoint, you know, any business, if you go out, like I get emails and phone calls to buy into franchises all the time. But when they offer franchises for markets, it has to be in a market that's sustainable for that product or that service. So when the NFL pretty much works in every market in the country. But what they're looking at is it working or could it be working better? So for Oakland, them being at 300 million and again, only 70 some million from in-game and tickets, it's atrocious. They're just not getting the return on the investment as the NFL. You know, is it hard for the fans that live in Oakland that they can't go to games in Oakland now? Yeah, that sucks. But in the grander scheme of things, you're going to an international city like Vegas. That's helping the Raiders. That's helping the NFL. If you're a true Raiders fan, you should be looking at the glass half full. You know, it sucks that you can't just drive to the game, you know, in an hour or less. You're going to have to drive several hours or fly. But now you're going to have more tools to get in different free agents, to bring in, you know, team can bring in more money, more revenue, so they can overspend. Because, I mean, we get caught up so much in, oh, here's the salary cap. But people don't realize that there's a lot of guaranteed money that never touches the salary cap.
Matthew, what about this, though? The Raiders were in L.A. for 13 years. There's a very big fan base in L.A., in Southern California. Actually, the Raiders have a big fan base in all other places. They're one of those national teams, so they have a national fan base. They're one of the few teams that has that. So by moving to Vegas, they just moved 3 hours closer to LA.
Yeah.
And so my feeling is, and I think there were some people talking this morning that uh, the Raiders move to Vegas might actually hurt the Chargers and the Rams because the Raiders have a much firmer fan base in LA than either those other two teams do, and people can drive to Vegas. And heck, it's not like Vegas is a hard place to get a hotel room, right? I mean, it's not like trying to go someplace else where there's not hotel rooms. You can go to Vegas and get a hotel room anytime.
Yeah.
These guys from LA, they can drive up Saturday night, get a hotel room, go to the 1 o'clock Pacific time game in Vegas, get on the road at 5 o'clock, and be back in Vegas by 10 o'clock at night, and they've had a really nice couple days. They're going to do that all day long. And so I think, I think you and I talked about this earlier, a few weeks ago when this first started percolating, that I don't think it's a bad news for Mark Davis and the Raiders. I'm not a big opponent of the franchise business because, for the most part, football now is not so big. It's a television program. Okay, so there's 50,000 people in Oakland have season tickets to the Raiders that are disenfranchised. But you made a good point. If they want a championship as a Raiders fan, their best bet to move to Vegas.
Yeah.
Increase. I think it's going to be a 65,000 seat dome stadium.
And they're going to get a Super Bowl in Vegas, just to let you know. This building a stadium, and they'll get one.
So, to me, it is what it is. We have to look at the whole landscape and say, that city's assumed Vegas offered to build it for them. In an ideal setting, they would have privately financed their own stadium in Oakland. But Mark Davis isn't Robert Kraft.
No, that wasn't. They had public money in the Oakland one too. It was only $200 million. It was $200 million in money, and then there was like 501 acres of land. Something. Yeah, they had to share it with Oakland Athletics. That was their catch. They don't want to.
They wanted the city revenue to themselves. So if Kenny Chesney shows up for a concert, the A's wanted that. The Raiders wanted that money.
And the funny thing is, right now, in the current situation, the Athletics actually make more money in revenue in that same stadium than per game. That's per game, not over the whole. Obviously, there's more games, but per game, they make more money in revenue from concessions and tickets and stuff like that than the Raiders do. So as much as when I hear stuff like that, you're not getting in revenue. The concessions aren't buying. As much as it saddens to say, we're taking something away from the fans in that area. As fans, what are you doing? I get it, you're diehard fans, but what are you doing in that area? Why aren't you contacting your congressman? Why aren't you looking at finding other taxes and other ways to pay for it? And they waited so long, and that's an issue that I've had here in Tampa. The St. Pete City Council has put a phallus in the hind end of this community for baseball. 3 of the major locations that they wanted would have been available 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, but they have drawn this thing out for the last 7 years and have not allowed the Rays to look outside. And as soon as they have an opportunity to look outside and truly start to plan and put something together, they can legally do those plots, those areas are bought up by developers. And developers, no, they're going to build business complexes. They're going to build apartments, condos, because they make more money off that than they will building a Rays stadium, building restaurants near the water. It's a really booming area. And a lot of people have coming into Tampa Heights. I live in Seminole Heights, which is just north of that. Tons of developers and investors have come in and bought houses, tore them down, rebuilt them, rehabbed, refurbished houses. So again, a lot of people are buying in the area. It's just the raise for where they could legally go and do that. They were held back, in hindsight, you'd think that they could go and purchase land, but it doesn't work exactly that way. And Jeff Vinnick, the owner of the Lightning, isn't willing to share/sell anything he's doing because he bought up the whole channel side area and he's getting ready to rehaul all of that. So, it's a and again, the first location they were looking at in downtown, they would have had to use eminent domain, moved a factory, and then tore it down, and then built something there, and then negotiated sharing parking lots with the Lightning, because Vinnick owned it, but it didn't really get to that. Yeah.
I lived there for 6 years. Was very, familiar with the region. Why not out near I-75 and I-4? In fact, even up towards Lakeland. Why not build a regional complex out there where people can get to it easily through this thing? I mean, very much like the Kansas City area, where the Kansas City complex is with those communities out on I-70. I don't understand why that isn't an option, given where the population is, and not just the population of Tampa, but the people with the money to actually go to games.
Yeah.
Out of the burbs. Why not out there? Because that to me makes a lot of sense. And you get parking. You can have an entertainment complex. You could do what it's doing in LA, right? With LA, they're building a multi-use. That stadium is going to be the core of a multi-use center in LA. Actually, they're tearing down the old Arlington, the racetrack, and all that out there. That's where you put it. So to me, that's where I think you would go. So,
well, the simple answer is they want to keep everything in one area. They want to have the Lightning. They want to have the Rays close to near the downtown area. And my suspicion is they are probably, whenever the Rays or the Buck Stadium comes up, they're going to try to push it back down that way too and see where they can fit it. But they want to use the trolley system, and they want to keep it in that downtown Ybor area, especially with baseball. Baseball, hockey, very localized sports. The fan bases are, there's not very many, because there's not very many historic teams. There's a lot of expansion teams, and being in Tampa, you get a lot of transit people coming in, similar to Las Vegas. So that's kind of, some of the things that when you look at tourist cities that could conflict with having a franchise and building a fan base. But a best person to really talk about how some of that stuff works is our guest for this evening. He is the author of The Voices of Baseball, and his name is Kirk McKnight. How are you doing this evening, Kirk?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
You went straight into your guys' call, and I just was wondering if the
Yeah.
or if I was actually in there. So that's good.
No, we fired our call screener. Yep, they cursed on air. But what's online, so you can curse. We just didn't like them, so we fired him. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good. That's usually the case of it being the culture of being like a wife or a sister, or somebody with a favor owed to them kind of thing. It worked out, right?
Well, it was, yeah, kind of like that. Kind of like that. Almost exactly like that. It's freakish the way that you kind of figured that out so quickly. Huh.
Buttermilk with people.
So, as you could, the conversation we're kind of having there was, we were talking about the Raiders moving to Vegas, and you live in Vegas, the Sin City. Before we get into the book and a little about baseball, what are your feelings on the Raiders coming to town? Do you see it being a pro thing or con? What do you see as the potential fallback from that?
Pro for sure because as a homeowner, I can't wait to sell my house to a home bidder in 2020. But there's plenty of pros. The only cons I can see right now are traffic, but that's only because we're in the middle of a huge freeway project as it is. But that project, considering the fact that we're, the stadium should be, the situation for 2020, it actually looks like it could work out, and that not actually be too much of a con per se right now, or for the time when the Raiders will get here. When I gotta tell you guys, I mean, I'm kind of following the Bible you're talking about. So, when talking about real estate, you're talking about planning and development and everything like that. One of the places that they said that they were possibly looking for the Raiders to have their stadium, I just scratched my head and said that's not going to ever work because it was a confluence of two major interstates, basically downtown Las Vegas, where the expressway that runs between northern Nevada and Phoenix and then some kind of crosses and joins with the 15, which is the major freeway that runs, all the way up to Idaho on down to San Diego. And so they were talking about having a stadium right there, pretty much just off to these two freeways right there. And I just kept thinking of Dodger Stadium, just thinking of how traffic is as it is right now. And I just thought, no, the Dodger Stadium is 54,000 people. This is going to be a 70, 80,000. This. I don't know if you guys have seen the specs and the pictures and everything like that of what this stadium is going to be. It's going to be practically $2 billion facility, and that's meaning, Dodger Stadium, attendees plus, another 40% of that, 50% of that. So just looking at what they thought about that, and where they're going to put it, I just thought, no way. And where they're going to put it now, it's a little bit more feasible and practical, I guess you could say, for traffic. It's still going to be traffic, but it's not going to be Carmageddon, traffic.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
looking forward to what?
I was just saying, I read a report. It was in The Economist. The Nevada Department of Transportation estimated that it will require $899 million in highway upgrades in order to really facilitate it. Now, this was an article from the end of January, so that was probably figuring in them building it in that atrocious intersection you were talking about. Maybe the relocation would change that. Hopefully that would, because that would make a huge difference.
I can tell you this much: the Nevada Department of Transportation has my complete sympathy because they have been working so hard on this huge freeway project that's been in the works for the last 18 to 20 years, and they're basically in the go stage for it. And all of a sudden, you got somebody like Mark Davis saying, "I want to bring the Raiders to Vegas," and it just makes the Department of Transportation job all the more difficult. So my heart and sympathy goes out to them, so much.
That's like the epitome of ordering more food when you're paying for it.
Right. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, yesterday was crazy. It was my day off yesterday, and just driving around on the freeway, driving along the 15. The 15 runs behind the Las Vegas Strip pretty much. So you basically see all the major billboards, and you can just tell that the city's getting, the city's excited for it, and they're getting ready for it, and we have our questions about anytime before 2020 them being here? That's a major question. I think a lot of people are eager to have them here before 2020, but if you think of the ramifications of that with the stadium not being ready and what it would mean to the, to the locals and other things where they would be playing, man, there's just so much money that is just going around in the city. We already knew it was the city with all that money. But now this is money that we're just coming out of like our pockets, not so much the tourist pockets. Where that's been the case forever is that the tourists come and sit there and dump all their money into it, and if they win, they win. If they lose, they lose. But now we're talking about these things, and all of a sudden now it's like we're funding this too, and the tourists are funding it even more. And my heart goes out to the tourists and come to stay here too. God bless them for all the money they get to the city. Kirk, this is Kevin Krest. I'm a frequent visitor to Salon, right? And so I'm familiar with that initial location you talked about, which would be totally unfeasible. I agree with you. I mean, the other thing too is that because of the nature of that part of the city, now there's an entire north part of the city that people don't really aware of unless you visited Las Vegas and been there. The possible locations for a stadium down near the Las Vegas Strip are very limited, and if you move out from the Strip, that's where all this highway money would have to go because there's no infrastructure down there. Because most visitors to Las Vegas do not drive. Right, they fly in, right? They fly in and they take the shuttle buses, or they rent, or they take a cab or whatever. And now they've got the great monorail that runs around the city. So the entire infrastructure around the stadium is non-existent in Las Vegas. And you're talking about, they're talking about the city being funded by tourists, but you guys can have to fund the infrastructure. So what's the feeling about that part of the public money that has to go to infrastructure spend? Is there a lot of support for this from the populace?
I don't know, I don't read the papers that much. I just can tell you the things that we talk about because, we know that a lot of people come to tourism, obviously, and I work as a valet, on the Strip. And so, we see the things that have changed, the changes that have happened, the parking, the charge for parking all of a sudden. Vegas was like a utopia, or not a utopia, but it was just basically an anomaly for tourism because if you go to California and all that, and anywhere, you go all these places, Seattle, all these places, they charge you for parking, and Vegas was never like that. And then all of a sudden, Vegas is charging for parking for all these people that come to visit the hotels, and it just was like, what in the world, and people there's a backlash from that. And I think there's going to be a backlash from the tourist tax for all this. So, that's what usually we talk about, at work and things like that. Because we're already in the tourism industry and we're sitting there like, man, these poor folks just getting billed like crazy, but they love it and they still come here. So, more power to them kind of thing. And, being honestly speaking, and I've heard this comment said, from other people, but one thing that we need to keep an eye out on is that the education level in Nevada is number 50 out of 50. We're at the bottom. We're at the drain. And you think about those things, and you see how much money the state generates, and it's really a shame that we're that low on the education level. You see what priorities are and things like that. And so, one of the people I talked to just said, they're like, are we really going to do this Raider thing? We're 50th in education, and we're just throwing money this way and that, and $2 billion stadium, and people throwing around the $650 million figure. That goes a long way in things like education, and you're talking about a city where the local education level is the bottom, the absolute bottom.
Yeah, I mean, how many schools and how many teachers could you fund for $2 billion in public money, right? I mean, I agree with that. But we talk economic benefits, and we're a sports talk show, so I won't get more of the social stuff. But it is an interesting with all of that and what this means to Las Vegas, I mean, to me, they're trying to legitimize themselves as a true city, and you do that by getting an NFL or NHL or NBA franchise, right? And I get all that. I understand that. But I will say this: um, as a frequent visitor, I am looking forward to being able to go to a football game while I'm there, and that's a selfish thing, which is probably I should probably feel guilty about that, but I really don't tonight. But I mean, because I didn't make the decision. I'm just gonna, and obviously my money isn't gonna, the $800 I spent on my weekend there isn't gonna impact one way or the other what the NFL does. But that's a larger picture. So, and Matthew, if you don't mind, we can entertain the author part.
Yes.
I'm an author as well. So, your decision to interview other journalists and podcasters, where'd that come from?
Well, I've always been a fan of broadcasting. I've grown up on baseball. I grew up on Vince Scully, John Miller, Skip Terry, Terry, and the guys at CBS, the guys at WGN. Like I was lucky. We had cable access, so we could watch CBS, we could watch WGN, watch the Cubs, watch the Braves, watch the White Sox on the weekend. And so I was always brought up from baseball, not being in a baseball city per se, Major League Baseball wise, I was always brought up by those guys. I was brought up by watching it on TV. I could drive down to Anaheim for 4 hours, with my family growing up and watch the Angels. But most of the time I was, my summers were spent watching baseball on the TV. And so I always liked the broadcasters. And so when I got the idea for the book, to basically talk about how, all the different locations of baseball are so unique and each one is its own personality, I thought that's a great start to talking about a book. But I'm like, I don't want to sit here and be a Fromer's Guide kind of guy and be like, well, if you go to section 304, your neighbors down the way in Miami, I can't think of a menu item looking at online that doesn't involve the word Goya over at Marlins Park, and I don't even know what a Goya is. But I don't want to sit there and I didn't want to sit there and do that kind of stadium tour. I wanted to do a stadium tour from the people who know what they're doing. The broadcasters outlast everybody. Broadcasters, Vince Scully outlasted. I always make the joke. I said, broadcasters outlast the players, the managers, the owners, and in the case of Vince Scully, the city itself. So, the best perspective was, do it with the broadcasters. And I've done it with over 2 books now, and these guys know their stuff. And so if anybody's going to give somebody an insight into the venues, into the team, the traditions, the fan base, anything that comes with the team, it's going to be those guys. And they love their job. For the most part, they love their job. And they love their team, and they love what they do. Dave Wills, the Tampa Bay Rays broadcaster, that's quote of the book. For me, it's something I want to frame on and put in a little engraved in wood and put it above my desk. It says, what I do beats working for a living. And I love that quote. And I use it every day just to kind of think, okay, one of these days that's going to be my mantra. I'm going to say, what I do beats working for a living. When I don't have to work my day job and just do what I love and make money of it and make a living off of it.
And what's fascinating to me tonight is that my books are fictional about a broadcaster. Okay, that my central character is a fictional broadcaster. But I remember back, I met Marty Brenneman. Marty Brenneman was doing AAA baseball games for the Tidewater Tides in 1970. And a guy from my church knew him, and for my birthday, my 12th birthday, I was able to go in the broadcasters to meet Marty Brenneman. The next year, he was at the Cincinnati Reds. Okay, and it's the rest of history for him. Yeah. From that day on, I was focused on broadcasting, and I did broadcasting in college. I did broadcasting for my college baseball team, Virginia Tech. And at the time, it was 1980. There was no future for somebody like me in broadcasting because it was before ESPN, and I pursued a career in business. So it's interesting that we talk tonight because I grew up listening to Bob Prince. I don't know if you remember Bob Prince, legendary voice of the Pittsburgh Pirates, and KDKA radio was a three-channel radio station at night, and so the signal went a long way out of Pittsburgh. And so I would be in my bedroom in Virginia, listening to Bob Prince do Pittsburgh Pirates games. And so that's that kind of romanticized, and I know you probably did too. I grew up listening on the radio. I didn't watch much baseball on television. It wasn't on television. It was on once a week. And so the broadcasters you could, the Vin Scully and even the Jack Buck, and those guys, they were radio voices, right? And they had to invent the game. They had to create the vision of the game in your mind because you weren't there before television. So, so let me ask you this. Do you prefer to listen to a game on the radio or watch it on television?
I actually prefer to watch it on television, but I would love the capability. But the only thing is that, I enjoy listening on the radio too, though. Like if I'm driving, and I love driving, like I get a little bit of both, but for the most part, we don't have a local team, and even when we had Fox, like it's ridiculous out here, the Fox Sports contract with the Dodgers, because it used to be so simple as turning into Fox Sports West or Prime 6 or whatever back here, and you can watch the Dodgers, and I can watch the Expos. But over these last couple of years, it's become so complex. It's like it's just as complex as trying to catch a Yankee game on the Yes Network and MLB extra innings and everything you have to sit there and do. And it becomes annoying. And so, I prefer to watch a baseball game, but I guess if I would have my preference, I would watch a baseball game, turn on my XM radio, have it hopefully be in sync, and basically hear the radio broadcast while I'm watching an actual broadcast. Because we don't in Vegas. I don't have I don't have the local, the MLB extra innings per se, and to tune in to the TV broadcast and things like that. I guess I could, but I don't. Budget-wise, I'm just not, doing it. But I enjoy listening to it on XM radio more than anything because I love the radio broadcasters. I love just hearing it and kind of getting the feel for it. So I guess I kind of changed the answer in the mid-answer. I guess I say I like watching baseball, but from a broadcasting perspective, and just actually just get the feel for the broadcasters, yeah, I love tuning in on the radio. And that's the thing. Most of the guys I talked to, the voices of baseball, for about a 2-to-1 ratio, maybe even more, maybe even a 3-to-1 ratio, it was radio over TV. And which was great because I wasn't precluded from getting stories about the playoffs for these radio guys. And that was great. That was a great opportunity as well. So when I'm on XM, and I'm tuning and I say, Washington Nationals baseball. Oh, Charlie Flows, great. I can tune into Charlie Flows. Oh, Miami Marlins baseball. Oh, Dave Van Horn, Hall of Famer. Great. Listen to him. Listen to his way of calling the game. And you already mentioned Marty Brennaman, who's featured in the book. And Marty Brennaman was one of the greatest treats for me to talk to him so early in the process. The guy has such a personality. He's such a legend in this craft. And, his legacy's passed on to his son, who broadcasts on a national level, with Fox and with other different networks. So somebody like Marty Brennaman, who is kind of, these guys are good friends. So when you don't see their faces, you hear their soothing voice, and they just guide you through a game, and they paint the picture for you. I just love it. So I guess an ideal world would be a TV with the game on, and a XM radio behind me with somebody like Marty Brennaman guiding me through it.
Well, you mentioned John Miller, and I grew up in Virginia and was an Orioles fan, and John was at the Orioles for a long time, and then now I think he's still with the Giants.
He is with the Giants.
What a voice! I mean, that guy, so smooth, right? He just kind of guides you through the game, count 3 and 2, fastball on the outside corner. What a great, it's just kind of that, he fits the Bay Area so well. He's so laid back. But like I said, I'm a radio guy. I grew up listening on the radio. All these guys, I love your answer because you actually did come around to my point of view, which I always love when somebody agrees with me. So that's yeah. So when you think about the announcers, I mean, who speaks to you? Who's the guy that really, you know, say that's my guy? If I could have one guy to call every game I've ever I've been listening to, who would that be?
I think now that Scully's retired, I mean, I would, the obvious answer is Scully, but I think now that Scully's retired, of the second, the most featured broadcaster in the sports of baseball is John Miller, because he gave me the Baltimore Orioles chapter and the San Francisco Giants chapter, and you are absolutely right about his soothing voice, and I grew up on Sunday Night Baseball, and I even told John this in one of my interviews. I said there's a brief section of highways in Arizona between Utah and Nevada that I would drive, and for some reason, this is before satellite radio, this is before Sirius and XM took over the waves, but I could turn on 680. It would beam down into that gorge, and I could hear for 20 minutes Giants baseball, and I always felt myself so fortunate if I was driving through that gorge during a Giants broadcast, because then I could hear John. And I was just like, to basically just try to pinpoint that 20 minutes of my life just to basically tune in to hear John. That's what he meant to me, in my baseball listening experience. And to be able to meet with him in person and to have several conversations with him over a period of time was just, honestly, like, obviously tell you that Vince Scully's the pinch me moment, where he calls me out of the blue and introduces himself like I needed any introduction. That's the pinch me moment of the book. But being able to speak with John Miller so many times and to get so much information, to get John Miller to talk to me about Cal Ripken Jr. breaking Lou Gehrig's record, I mean, it turned out that everything fell into place, because I couldn't get any current for Orioles broadcasters, and John and I were talking about something completely different, because I broadcast for the Orioles for 14 years, so if you want perspective on Camden Yards, I can just give that to you. And I'm just sitting there like, yes, please. And the guys that are there now, they were there when Cal broke Lou Gehrig's record. And so to be able to get that moment, it was great. And it was so just fortuitous for me. And it was amazing. And to get that, and to get the poignant moments that he just got a memory that's just so expensive. And for him to sit there and just talk to me about these poignant moments, and I'm just visualizing them and writing them on paper. That chapter is my favorite chapter in the book, and I still tell people that Baltimore Orioles Camden Yards chapter is by far the best one, because that ballpark is what really revolutionized and became the trailblazer for baseball as we see it today. If it weren't for Camden Yards, I think we'd all be still watching baseball in cookie cutter, multi-use facilities where you could probably just, like some of these broadcasters say, just drop it in the middle of Ohio, and you're basically like, okay, I'm in Ohio, or I could drop it right in the middle of the Ozarks and be like, I don't know where I am. I just know that the on-deck circle is a little different, but everything else looks the same. So it's great to be able to get a perfect perspective like John Miller's on Camden Yards, and it just really made it basically made sense that he would be the one to really bring that chapter to fruition.
So that's a great story for you, Kirk. You're going to love this, and for the listeners. So I was at the last game at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore. The announcer, right? And so we didn't know what was going to happen. It was the last game. It was a miserable night in Baltimore. It's like drizzle and 50 degrees, and I wasn't feeling well. But they ended the game, and they had a helicopter land on the infield, and they took home plate from Memorial Stadium in Baltimore, and they flew it to Camden Yards, which was under construction. And John Miller was doing the play-by-play. right, over the loudspeaker of this thing going, the home plate going to Camden Yards, and they're showing Camden Yards on the big screen at the stadium, and it it's they literally lowered home plate into a spot in Camden Yards on the big screen, and Jim McKay, the legendary broadcaster who is from Baltimore, big horse guy, but Jim McKay is at Camden Yards, and he takes over the broadcast from Miller. So you go Sean Miller to Jim McKay, and I'm sitting there going, this is surreal. On a Sunday night, we're doing this. So that was this big production, and so it was kind of this passing the torch from the old. And Memorial Stadium had a lot of history, right? Not just for the Orioles, but for the Baltimore Colts as well. I mean, it's a city thing. And so that was a very wonderful night. And when you have Jim McKay, he was the guy at the Olympics in 1972 that had to tell the world that the Israeli athletes had been killed, right? I mean, this is the kind of voice that we were dealing with that night. So I thought you used that story. That was that was a passing of the sport to Camden Yards. I agree with you. Camden Yards was just was a groundbreaking kind of venue. It went from the multi-use stadiums like Three Rivers Park and Riverfront Stadium, and Veteran Stadium, right? And it moved all. They had a whole Valley Stadium, all those multi-use stadiums, and all of a sudden we went to which is interesting because Kansas City, which is not far from where I live, I'm in Arkansas. They were kind of groundbreaking. They went the opposite direction in the '60s, but now there are no multi-use stadiums except for Oakland. It's the last multi-use. Not for long. Not for long. And so anyway, but wow, it's fascinating that our interests are similar, and I'm sure that my character, P.J. Frazier, would love to be interviewed by you if you could find him. I mean, if you can do that, it's available. It sounds like a character. Matt told me the little story the other day when he was introducing himself. So.
See that, Kevin? I introduced myself with your book. How about that, huh? I haven't written one, so I have to live vicariously through yours. And my moronic experience of can't figure out that this guy's not real, but everything else is. Well, Kirk, the one thing I did want to talk to you a little bit of, get into a little about you. When we were emailing back and forth before the show, you were talking about how you noticed when you were interviewing these guys, many of these legendary broadcasters, that a lot of them remembered when they were kids and when they would go to the ballpark, and how that created some of the passion in them. Can you tell our audience a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I have the 7 Hall of Fame broadcasters that are featured. The only Hall of Fame broadcaster that is not featured in Voices of Baseball that's an active broadcaster is Bob Houston. But and if you think about these guys that are making Dave Van Horn, Eric Nadell, Denny Matthews, Vince Scully, Don Miller, Marty Brenneman, and Dick Enberg there, and these guys are talking about stadiums that they went to that are no longer there. Vince Scully talking about going to the Polo Grounds. He broadcast when it's broadcasted for Steve Moore, Veterans Field, obviously with the Brooklyn Dodgers, going on to Los Angeles Coliseum, now in the Dodger Stadium, but he grew up in the Polo Grounds, watching the Giants game and dreaming of being in that broadcast booth, and he did go to that broadcast booth as a visitor, of course, but he still went to that broadcast booth when he started his career with the Dodgers.
know. And then you got somebody like Eric Nadell, who I like to bring this point up because I interviewed Eric Nadell my first day of interviewing down in spring training in 2014, and he was one of my very first interviews. And basically, just talked about going as a little kid to Evansville and how when he would watch Dodger games on TV, it was always in black and white. And he's going into Evansville as a kid his first time, and he's walking down, he's walking off the complex and down the aisle towards the seat, and he sees this emerald green field. And it just basically brought the experience to life from a black and white field on TV to an emerald green field at Evansville. And it was just an experience that he'll never forget. And so when he's telling me this, and he's telling me the experience, like, this is a whole nother plane that I could just open up with this book. It doesn't have to be about the stadiums of today. It can be about the ones of yesterday too. So there's 30 stadiums of yesterday featured in the book. And these guys, Nick Enberg talking about going to Briggs Stadium, and I'm like, Briggs Stadium, and that's how long ago we went to Tiger Stadium. It wasn't known as Tiger Stadium. It was called Briggs Stadium, and so that's why I'm like, oh my God, what are we talking about here? You're talking about a team I don't even know. I wanted to get on my phone and Google Briggs Stadium, and I realized he's talking about Tiger Stadium because that's where he grew up, the farm kid.
Mm-hmm.
So going that far back that he would call it Briggs Stadium when the whole world's known as Tiger Stadium for however long.
Yeah.
One of the meccas for baseball. That's when you realize that we're going back. And Tiger Stadium was built before Fenway Park.
The Lions actually played there. The Detroit Lions actually played in that stadium as well, from 38 to 74.
And you think about the players who played in that and Tiger Stadium. You think of players like Ty Cobb and Gehringer and and Greenberg and and Babe Ruth played in that stadium, and just all the players of way back yesterday. And it is like, these broadcasters went to those places. A great broadcaster, by the way, is Rick Riz of the Seattle Mariners, because that guy just totally gives you an insight and an appreciation for yesterday of the game. The ghost. For 3 years, he broadcast with the Tigers. A lot of people don't know, but Ernie Harwell was ceremoniously fired by the GM of the Tigers. And a lot of people are thinking, okay, who's firing Ernie Harwell? Well, that guy did. And as impossible as it is to hear, and Rick Riz was down there for about 3 years, and leaving Seattle to go there, and he just loved that stadium. He loved just the jokes about it. He just loved thinking and looking at that landscape and thinking of the players who once played there, and he could just almost picture them. It's just like Field of Dreams,
Yeah.
So I like it, and then he came back to Seattle, but he has such a love and appreciation for those things, and a lot of these broadcasters do. So, their memories are triggered, when I'm sitting there asking these questions, and great for me, this is it just fills on the paper because these experiences are just so amazing and so interesting. It just makes my job easier as a writer, just write these things out.
Yeah. The crazy thing is, when you hear people start to tell stories about when they were younger, they went with family, it just reminds me. And again, I hear this more frequently with baseball than any other sport. When people talk about their youth, what they did growing up. See, this is where I think, for, kind of go off on a little tangent here briefly, where Major League Baseball is missing out on a huge thing. Because they could literally do what McDonald's did 2 decades, almost 3 decades ago now, and they could just become, the grown-up kids sport, kids professional sport, the one that's basically mandatory that every child plays and goes to, without question. And they could so easily step into that label and own that. We're the kids sport. you go there growing up. You don't have to worry as much about, the tailgating, the lewd and obscene behavior that adults, kind of contribute to sporting events. Um, so it seems to be just generally more family oriented, but I feel that because they had actually, with the last commissioner, they had decreased the amount of money that they were putting into inner city funding for baseball leagues and stuff like that. And they kind of had drawn back from that. I don't know if they were trying to skim fat, but by getting that out of the game, taking themselves away from that youth level, I think that's their target market. The parents are going to come. I mean, Mattel has been in business for how long? McDonald's still has the Happy Meal. I think they're the only company that still has kids' toys. I know Wendy's does. I have kids. Wendy's does something in their like weird toys. I don't know. I don't know if it's called a toy or it's the odd party favor you get at a party. I don't really know what it is. I'm confused, frankly, when I get it.
Or the trick-or-treat thing you get when you
Yeah.
make the house and
Yeah. It's like they had these, it was like the popsicle stick type thing where you put a mustache or glasses on it and then you pretend like you have glasses on. I'm like, why don't you just give them goofy looking glasses? I mean, I don't know. Why is it paper? I feel like we missed the boat on this. I'm confused. I'm not even the child here. With the Aces.
AAA team. And I think the minor league started to fill some of that void with the family friendly.
Yeah.
Right. I mean that's where you find some of that. Unfortunately, because my first Major League Baseball game was at Ford Field in 1963 between the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Milwaukee Braves. The Pittsburgh Pirates had Louis Stargell and Roberto Clemente, and the Milwaukee Braves, of course, had Hank Aaron. That was my first baseball game. Talk about a romantic experience in a sense, right?
So we know that's not gray hair dye now.
Well, yeah.
It's natural.
And I remember there were actually two inside the park home runs that night. That's how big Ford Field was. Ford Field was 440 in left center field. Okay, it was like a football field.
Yeah.
Of green grass. And Aaron hit one, and Clemente hit one. And inside the park home runs were not uncommon in Ford Field, but they both hit one that night. And I think the Braves, I believe the Braves won like 11-4. They were really good that year. That was when the Milwaukee Braves, I think they actually won the World Series in '63 or so, I think, and then moved to Atlanta. But my point is being that Kirk, I have that memory of those old stadiums, right? Of that, and I get the feeling of those broadcasters because those old stadiums, there was just if you've ever watched what was the movie with Robert Redford with the
Natural?
The Natural, okay. Get those kind of feelings, and I've been to Fenway Park, and I've been to Wrigley Field, and I love those stadiums so much more than the modern stadiums. And I've been to a lot of modern stadiums too. I've been to 22 modern stadiums, and there's something about those old stadiums that just bring back the romance of the game. It's almost like and when you're at those games in those old stadiums, it's like the players even are different. It's like there's some kind of different vibe about it when you're in something modern. And so I can understand why those announcers have kind of an affinity for remembering what it was like when they were in a different environment, right? A more collegial environment. And so I can certainly relate to that. And I was an announcer myself in college, so I was in college environment. And one of my favorite stadiums, I was at Georgia Tech. They had a great baseball field, and the press box was really old and cool. And I remember this. And I had been in more modern press boxes. I've covered modern sporting events as a journalist. It's not the same. So I understand, right? I could certainly relate to their, harken back to this day, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, Larry Lucchino, I personally sent a book to Larry Lucchino. He, you guys on business that know who Larry Lucchino is from his Red Sox.
Absolutely.
Yep. and so, he's the one who started it all with Ken Todd, and he tried to, unfortunately wasn't around still when they actually did the Petco Park down in San Diego, but he tried to bring that to life, and do exactly in San Diego like he did in Camden Yards. And, unfortunately for him, he was already, across the country. And, well, not unfortunately, he didn't go to Boston to, get a couple World Series there, which, San Diego doesn't have a sense of anything like that for, over its, 2 World Series appearances. But, he created that down there, over there in Baltimore, Camden Yards, and tried to basically add on to it in Petco. And then, and you also see AT&T Park, which was also kind of modeled after the Wrigley Field and the Fenway Park. So, some of these really great venues in baseball is that they're throwback style, building a baseball into a neighborhood rather than putting it out, out in this open landscape like someplace like Miller Park where they can just build and build and build and make it this just gigantic, majestic park. It's not bad. I'm not trying to bag on that or trying to, say anything negative about it, but I feel like the intimacy about some of these ballparks like AT&T Park and Camden Yards where you're pushed in and everything is right there. You're right on top of it. I think that feel is really what's kind of revamping baseball. He's getting people right back on top of the players like they used to be back in the days of Evans Field, where it's like the crowd was right on top of you and the ball was going out of it like crazy because it was a bandbox. As broadcasters in the baseball, people would call it bandbox, where just every ball seems to be a home run because of the dimensions and the weather and everything. So, it's great to get that throwback feel. It's also great to get the unique feel. Some of the stadiums are built by design for specific things like in Central Park home run robbing catches, the wall to where the outfielder can reach up and basically take one back from the hitter and bring it back into the park. Or that the hitter could actually, play it off of a hop and the hop goes this way or that and he turns it into a triple. So, I mean, it kind of depends on who's calling the shots, but, the fans kind of get those or they don't, based on how the park is built.
Yeah, and it's amazing the way that they've changed things so much to where they've added character and uniqueness. You see that a lot, like the Marlins Park, where they try to add extra attractions to bring people in outside of it, outside of just the baseball element. But Kirk, it's been great having you on here tonight. Definitely gonna have to have you back again in the near future. Let everybody know where can they find you online and where to buy the book.
At the Voices of MLB is my Twitter handle. The Voices of Baseball, with baseball spelled out, is my Instagram handle. You can find the book on Amazon. It's paperback just came out, and you can also find it on Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, IndieBound, if you want to go for some of the smaller companies like IndieBound and Books A Million, they also carry it. But Amazon's got it, Kindle, it's a very more affordable price now that it's out in paperback. So check any of those websites out, you can find it there, and it's definitely worth it. Now that it's in that paperback format, and with all the added material, it's definitely a great buy for you guys if you're a baseball fan.
That's awesome. Well, you have a pleasant evening out there in Vegas, and don't do anything dumb, because you live in Vegas, so it stays in Vegas, and that's not very good when you live there. Exactly. So, well, you have a great evening.
Hey, you guys do. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
And Kirk, Kevin, thanks for coming on. It's awesome talking to you. It was really, really enjoyable. So
Likewise, thank you. I've appreciated your story. Thank you.
Thank you. Kirk McKnight, ladies and gentlemen. So head on over to Amazon or one of the billion places that he sells the book, and go ahead and get it. It's a great item to pick up. So much history in there as well. We're going to take a quick break here, and then on the other side of that break, we're going to get into we have on the docket. I kind of wanted to get into the Final Four on the other side of the break. I think that's what I had in here. Anyways, definitely going to get into the Final Four. I know Lonzo Ball is talking more, not as much as his father, but he's not playing right now. So we're going to talk more about people that are playing and other shenanigans when we get back from this break. You're listening to the Cold Hard Truth on Sports here on the Go Along Media channel on blogtalkradio.com.
Hey, all this is Matt DeLong with the Cold Hard Truth on Sports and the Triangle Offense. I just wanted to take some time to tell you about Hesper. A wonderful company. They've been around for 20 plus years. They have over 11 branches in Florida. Great licensed, certified specialists. And guess what? They do more than pest control. They also take care of termites as well as lawn care, sprinkler systems, and much, much more. Call today, 1-800-PEST-BAN. That's 1-800-737-8232.
WCSB Sports and MRN Broadcasting, powered by blogtalkradio.com.
A long time ago, there was an ancient prophecy from the outermost edges of space that knows no boundaries. This fall, as we know it, will never be the same. One man, one weapon. Critics are calling it the best comedy of the year. From the makers of the Internet, this is his last chance to save the world. But then, the world does not exist.
Man, forget all that. Just download my special, man, or get the DVD when it's available.
They will search for answers.
The link's posted below.
RichardReeseLive.com. Welcome back here to the Cold Hard Truth on Sports on the Go Along Media channel here on blogtalkradio.com. If you're just joining in, you just missed. Wonderful interview. Kept them a little bit long, but that's how we do it. A little bit long. Mr. Kirk McKnight joined us. Great book. You got to go out and get it. The Voices of Baseball. Interviewed, what does he say? He said seven of most famous broadcasters in baseball for that book. Is that what he said? 7? Was it 7?
Yep, Hall of Famer. So it's awesome.
It's amazing.
Awesome
He
interview.
didn't call PK. Well, I think he might now. He might call PK now. We'll see.
I think PK's number 8.
He was number 8. That's probably what it was. He was number 8. He was the TCU and Baylor of the selection committee, right?
That's exactly right. There you go. Yeah, he's the first four out.
Exactly. Well, it's at least he's close, you know. Yeah. Well, speaking of teams that are out, Kentucky is out. I had them actually in my Final Four, and Kentucky fans are behaving as expected because evidently, win, lose, or draw in Kentucky, you have to riot and burn stuff. I don't know why. I've never understood the riot and or burning stuff when you're happy. I mean, I understand happy tears and sad tears, but happy rioting and sad rioting? I don't. Never made sense to me. I don't know.
I can tell you this: I was at the Final Four in 2011, and it was UConn, Kentucky, BT with Butler, and Kentucky lost on Saturday night. The place was packed Saturday, and after Kentucky lost, it wasn't so packed on Monday. So, they're not basketball fans; they're Kentucky fans, and so they kind of bolted. But that fan base travels, and so I got to give them credit for that. They do go. But what a great, I think it's a great. It was an entertaining game on Sunday. It wasn't a great game because they were so evenly matched, those two teams, UNC and Kentucky. And so it was kind of an ugly game, but it was a fun game to watch, right? I mean, I don't know if you watched it, Matthew, but it was it was just fun to watch. It was one of those games where you're going, wow. It had actually a national championship feel to it. I mean, either of those teams, I think the winner of that game is going to win it all at this point. Although, given my record, this March Madness, I was telling somebody today, I'm not even picking which grocery line to get into. That's how badly my picking is at the moment. If there's only one grocery line available at the grocery store, checkout line,
Yeah.
I'll probably pick the wrong one. That's how bad it is. Okay. But that game just had a Final Four feel to it. Those two teams were that good. That shot by Monk to tie it, and then the pass and the shot by May to win it for Carolina. That was just one of many games like that. This has been a very entertaining tournament in my mind. I can't remember this many close, entertaining games. I've been mesmerized by it just because of the level of competition and the level and I guess the amount of basketball IQ and the excellence of play. I think it's been wonderful, and I've heard people complain a little bit about the officials, but I've liked the fact that they've let them play. I really have. I've liked the less calls rather than more calls. I've appreciated that. That's kids decide the game, not the officials. So that's just been with the exception of the Gonzaga blowout on Saturday. Even the weekend was just mesmerizing. The games were close. They were entertaining. So I'm looking forward to the Final Four. And we'll see. I mean, history would tell us that South Carolina has a heck of a chance the way they've run through the year.
Yeah, and it was that the sort of that it was a good ending. It was a very entertaining game. To hit the three at the end, and then with was it 3/10 of a second left on the clock there at the end? It made you wonder, could we see like you're not going to get a whole full court shot off in 3/10 of a second, but he basically dropped the inbound pass, and that was the ball game.
Yeah, 3/10 isn't enough to get you can't get a catch and shoot. You get
Yeah.
Basically had to throw it down there. And it was, I mean, at that point, the game was pretty much.
Yeah.
But what a great effort by those kids. I mean, Aaron Fox, the guard for Kentucky,
Mm-hmm.
39 points on Saturday against a really good UCLA team, and then to come out against Carolina. I mean, it was just fun to watch. I mean, I don't have a dog in the hunt. My team, Virginia Tech, went out in the first round against Wisconsin, but wow, what a wonderful tournament! And we have 3 more really good games left. And South Carolina, the way they're playing defense, the way they really rallied, they lost. South Carolina lost 6 of their last 9 games. They were on a slew, and they looked horrible against Alabama in the SC tournament, and they limped. They literally limped into the NCAA tournament, and then they just scorched Marquette.
Yeah.
And they beat Duke. I mean, that wasn't a case of Duke, blowing it. That was a beatdown, and they just kept going. And that is a. Now remember, at one point, South Carolina was 20-4, and I think they were ranked 8.
Frank Martin has him playing.
Right.
You know, we talked about him last week, kind of in more appreciation.
Yeah, he took Kansas State to the Final 8, Elite 8, maybe Final 4. But that's an experienced veteran group. They're all juniors and seniors. They're his guys that he brought in, and they just kind of got it together. And they've been playing ridiculous basketball. I mean, with that defense that they're playing right now, they could certainly win it. I mean, I think their run's going to end short of a championship, but Gonzaga better bring it Saturday night because South Carolina is going to exert pressure. I don't think Gonzaga's the team, and Gonzaga didn't have to play a really good team because there were upsets in their side of the bracket. So I wouldn't be surprised to see South Carolina face North Carolina in the final. I mean, I would. I think Oregon. It's a bad matchup for Oregon against North Carolina, but I've been wrong the whole tournament, so don't listen to me. But right, but I think they will finally miss Brochet in the second leading scorer. I think they're going to finally miss him because of North Carolina's length and the guard play. But it should be a good Final Four as usual. It's going to be fun to watch. And so you got 2 number 1s, a number 3, and a number 7, which is not unusual in terms of the Final Four. You still have 2 number 1 seeds.
Yeah.
My bracket, I still have Gonzaga. I have Gonzaga winning the whole thing, and I don't know where that came from. I looked at it the other day and went, "Oh, did I do that?" But I did.
Did you think Xavier was going to beat Gonzaga at some point in that game?
Not really. Those of us from the East Coast haven't seen Gonzaga, and I didn't see that much during the season. But that's a pretty impressive basketball team. I mean, they're a complete basketball team. They've got the big guys, Kornowski, and they have guard play. They play defense. The knock was that they were from the West Coast Conference, which didn't have a lot of competition, but they beat some good teams early in the season, and so that's a quality basketball team. And I'm not surprised to see them emerge from that bracket. Although I had Arizona advancing in most of my picks that I thought Arizona, but Arizona and Kansas both in their losses just had bad shooting nights, right? They just, and that's what happens in a one and done. I mean, in the end,
You mean Kentucky?
you have a bad night. Yes, you have a bad night, and on to another game. But in the NCAA, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Kansas especially, they had so many chances, right, against Oregon to come back in that game. They have stop after stop after stop.
It,
Couldn't get it from the offensive end of the floor.
it really was like, it was. I mean, you look at their previous games and you just, it wasn't that the effort wasn't there, but the shots just weren't falling and the ball wasn't rolling in their direction, you know?
Right. It's basketball. I was in Tulsa last weekend. You know, when Kansas was rolling through the first two rounds, and then you know, the Sweet 16, they just absolutely, destroyed their opponent again. And it looked like they were on a roll. Last Friday, I picked Kansas. I thought they were playing the best in the tournament.
Yeah.
And they just had a bad game, right? I mean, people are talking about Bill Self being fired. And come on.
People, we know, to quote,
His team had his 18-year-olds had a bad game. That's all it was. He's not playing. He can't play. He can't take a shot. They had open looks. I'm sitting there the whole time going, oh, they're playing very well. They're taking the right shots. They just weren't falling. And that happens, right? It's just
yeah.
one of those things, which is why the NCAA tournament is such a random event. I mean, if it wasn't so hard to do, the number one team would win every year, and it never does. I say never, but it rarely does. Duke was number one to start the season, and they didn't get out of the regionals. I mean, the sub regionals. So, Villanova, top seed, top overall seed, didn't get the Sweet 16. So, come on, it's a fun thing. It's what it is. These teams are very successful. You have to look at the record over time, not this season. Frankly, I guess you'd have to say that the best team remaining on paper is North Carolina.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And fortunately, and I think this is a fortunate thing that the two number one seeds still is standing on opposite sides of the bracket. So in my mind, I would love to see a North Carolina Gonzaga final. I mean, come on. I mean, who would want to see that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If you don't have a dog in the hunt, right, that's the game you want to see. The mid-major Gonzaga, Mark Few finally get to the Final Four, and what a great guy, and what a great program, and you got to feel good for him. Against the traditional, one of the top 4 or 5 programs in all of college basketball history. Come on.
Yeah.
How
Well,
good
this
is that?
and this is the first time they've been there too. This is their first for actually, isn't it both for South Carolina and Gonzaga and Oregon?
Well, South Carolina has, Oregon got to the Final Four in 1939, so it's the second time, but it doesn't go.
Mm-hmm. Okay, in your lifetime, because we don't want to go way, way, way far back. We'll just go, to Prohibition. All right, the Civil Rights era. We'll go to the Civil Rights era, no further.
I remember the story for that Oregon in the Final Four. I wasn't actually alive yet. No. But you've got basically North Carolina and 3 teams that have never even sniffed it, right? I mean, South Carolina hasn't even won an NCAA tournament game since 1973. Okay, so Oregon has had some success. Oregon has been to the Elite Eight a few times, but yeah, North Carolina is the team.
Yeah.
And you've got Gonzaga though. Gonzaga's been into the tournament 18 consecutive seasons, several Elite Eight. And this is the first time they got over the hump to get to the Final Four. And that's a good football, a good basketball team. I really want to see, and I'm not sure we'll see it because it's been such a little bit of a topsy-turvy know you read my blog. You probably saw it earlier this week, or last week actually, where I broke down where this tournament actually has had less upsets than prior years.
Yeah.
And so I'd urge people to go back and look at that blog, because they'll be quite surprised at how unlikely it is actually for number 2 to number 3 to actually get it even to the Sweet 16. It's really, really, really remarkable. And so this is a fairly typical Final Four. In South Carolina, if you rewound to the 1st of March, Oregon probably would have been a number 2 seed. Now, South Carolina could have been as high as a 3 at that time. Right? If you went back and checked the bracketology at that point. So there's 4 legitimate basketball teams in this Final Four. Even though, I guess the big kicker was in the East when Villanova and Duke both lost before the Sweet 16. So that eliminated, that opened the door for South Carolina. But other than that, it wasn't that,
And then Baylor got trounced.
well, yeah, I think the only reason Oregon got seeded as low as they did, I mean, they were probably could have been number 2 seed, was because they got that injury, and so they weren't considered. The thought was they weren't going to advance because of the injury to the day, and yet they found a way to accommodate that, and that's a really good basketball team. So I'm looking forward to it as usual. It's going to be entertaining. You got, listen, a North Carolina Gonzaga final. Oh my gosh, that would be that'd be very interesting. Gonzaga going after number 1, North Carolina's traditional power. But I don't know. Oregon.
If we end up with what do you think is going to happen? And I want to bring James Bell in with us, our contributor for college sports, as well as editor for boxing. I'm going to bring him in with us here in just a second. Do you think it's going to hurt the TV numbers have actually been really good for this tournament. Do you think a regional tournament between North Carolina and South Carolina hurts it, or maybe even Oregon and Gonzaga, a West Coast, again, or another regional tournament? Do you think that those two outcomes hurt the potential TV audience?
I think the worst matchup is Oregon, South Carolina, because that's just a buzzkill, right? Neither programs got recognized.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you my 4 in order of best to worst. North Carolina Gonzaga is the best TV ratings, right? There's no question about that. Then North Carolina, South Carolina, and then Oregon, Gonzaga, and then Oregon, South Carolina. Those in that order. Those are the 4 in order. You got to give North Carolina at least 75% chance to beat Oregon. I mean, you got to. I mean, somewhere in that range. And I'm still going to give Gonzaga the edge over South Carolina only because Gonzaga has size, and even with South Carolina's defense, Gonzaga is very, very good, and they only lost 1 time this season. And so I still am going to give about a 60% chance you're going to get North Carolina Gonzaga. The rest of them are going to be a diminished final. But you know what? People going to watch. This is what it is. Yeah. It's the NCAA championship. But an Oregon South Carolina final, I mean, that's going to be uninteresting for a lot of people.
Yeah. James, what is your take on this? You see North Carolina, Gonzaga coming out of this?
that North Carolina and Gonzaga are the favorites, but I wouldn't put anything past South Carolina right now. I mean, they're going on a great run here in this NCAA tournament that nobody has really seen. I mean, as far as like predictions for the NCAA tournament, I think South Carolina was a team that was among the lowest to make it to the championship game or to win the national championship. Even lower than some double-digit seeds that were out there. I mean, even though they may have been, kind of up there in reference to seeding at least a month or so before the actual NCAA tournament. And when you talk about like teams, the basketball team, South Carolina is really, among the top of the list, even within their own conference. You talk about the regulars, Kentucky and Florida, and then you still have, somebody like in Arkansas that's out there when it comes to NCAA tournament history. But like the stat that was given out there, I mean, South Carolina hadn't won a tournament game since 1973, and now they just run up to the Final Four. So, and in one of the regions that had those big boys in there, you had Villanova lose in the second round, but you did have Duke. You did have the Marquette out there. You did have Baylor out there. So they were able to do what they had to do and execute on defense. Had a great defensive efficiency in these first 4 rounds to get to the Final Four. So I wouldn't put anything past South Carolina to do it. And I mean, it's still like they have nothing to lose here, and I think the pressure is still on Gonzaga, even with them making it to the Final Four for the first time. I mean, they still have that great record, and they still have the pressure of still making it to the national championship game.
Well, I think Gonzaga, and I agree with you, James. In South Carolina, they beat the 2, 3, and 4 seeds in succession to get to the Final Four. They didn't dodge anybody. In other words, there were no upsets. There were no upsets in their half of the bracket. They had to pull them. They were the upset, and so they didn't get the advantage of playing like an 11 seed or a 14 seed or something like that. They played the best team in their bracket, except for the fact that they didn't have to play the number 1 seed, but they played the rest, and so I agree with you, James. But the thing was, coming in, South Carolina lost 6 of their last 9 games. I mean, they were dead in the water. They were really not a good team down the stretch. I mean, it started with Arkansas, a loss to Arkansas at home, and they just kind of fell off the radar coming down the stretch. I don't know what they did between the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament, but boy, they really turned it around. So I agree with you. Gonzaga has to play because Gonzaga, you could make a case that Gonzaga didn't play a team as good as South Carolina in their region, right?
Yeah, no, they haven't. I think that kind of attests to, one of the things about the NCAA tournament. I'm not sure if this was talked about in the previous couple of weeks, but, when the tournament bracket came out and then they, put out the list of overall seeds, there was like a good amount of criticism about the seeding, from columnists and from coaches. Of course, notably before the tournament started, they had on ESPN, they had John Calipari, talking about how they should have seeded the teams. And, when you have like teams that are...
Doesn't he bitch about that every year, though?
How was that?
I think that's like, putting up the Christmas tree. John Calipari going on TV and bitching about the seating. Isn't it just like his shtick?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. But, I mean, there was like a few, instances where, people were criticizing, like, certain teams getting certain positions or seedings. Like, for example, Florida State getting the number 2 overall 3 seed. in the tournament or something like that. And and that kind of like led to all of these upsets that happened within the first and second rounds. Is that a lot of the teams that were like seeded 8, 10, 11, 12, or something like that were underseeded. Like Wisconsin being the number 8 seed when they were like the second best team in the Big Ten in the regular season, that was kind of like a trap. And and the thing with Wichita State too. Right? So and Wichita State too. So that kind of like put in the overall upsets in those first couple of rounds, and I think Xavier was another one because they were the one that was an 11 seed and beat Maryland, and then turned around and beat Florida State. So they kind of like showed in those first or those early couple of rounds that a lot of these teams were either overseeded or underseeded, and kind of made for matchups that people didn't see coming, where people didn't see Xavier getting to the Sweet 16 or something like that, and then end up getting to the Elite 8 because Arizona had a cold spell at the end of the game. So I think that kind of like attested to the overall unpredictability of the NCAA tournament this year, because you had, like I said, 11 seed get to the Elite 8. You have South Carolina getting to the Final Four. And other things. And, that South region was pretty much the only region that kind of like went chalk, basically, when it came to the Sweet 16.
So, James, I go back and read my blog because contrary to popular belief about this year's tournament, for the first 2 rounds, there were actually less upsets than there have been for the last 8 years. So it actually went more to form than you would think. But I do agree that there were some misgivings. I mean, the most obvious one was Wichita State. I'm going to throw another one out there that won in the first. Okay, the Middle Tennessee State Minnesota game. Minnesota was they should have been 8, and Wisconsin should have been 6. Right? I mean, you could make a case for that, right? So
exactly.
Right. Xavier probably could have been a 9, and a couple of. But for the most part, I thought the committee did a pretty good job. I mean, overall, because they do have some constraints, because they can't put conference opponents against each other until the Sweet 16, which I think they need to change that rule. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what Calipari was talking about. That's what Calipari was talking about. He was saying, "Hey, wait a second. Just seed them. Just seed everybody and put them against each other. Who cares if Virginia's playing, Syracuse in the second round? Who cares, right? I mean, that was his point about the whole.
Yeah.
So that really kind of ties their hands, and they have to kind of jury rig the thing, right? But now, for Wichita State, actually, Wichita State gets screwed. You know who got screwed? State, right?
Yeah.
The State was a 7, playing probably. Wichita State should have been a 5 or a 6. I mean, seriously.
They were conference champs.
Yes, and they only lost like 4. I mean, they've won 21 games in a row, so they kind of fall asleep at the switch at times, but it's a really difficult task, and overall, they did a really good job. And at the end of the day, South Carolina went, I don't care, we're just going to beat everybody, and that's what they did. That's if the deal is to just win, you got to beat a bunch of good teams anyway. So who cares? But I do understand that they need to tweak some of that. I think they need to change the rule, because especially now that the conferences are consolidated, you get 11 teams from a conference in. You got to throw that whole second round thing out the window, because
window.
That's what's affecting all this stuff that Calipari was talking about. I agree with that. I mean, I don't agree with John Calipari on a lot of stuff, but I do agree with him on that, because he says, hey, if we've got to play forward in the second round, who cares? I mean, just make at least maintain the integrity of the bracket and and I agree
Yeah.
with that. So.
Yeah, and I wonder if they had to basically arrange these first and second round matchups. They kind of like do it due to location more than the actual team itself. So they try to make it so it's the best possible fit for the higher seeded team. Like for example, you have Florida State, have their first 2 rounds, over there in Orlando, and so in same case with Florida. So they kind of like tried to, put in all of that first. So I think like most of these sites are kind of like predetermined before the tournament. So they kind of like try to fit things according to location more than the actual matchup or the actual seeding of these teams. Because yeah, like you were saying, man, Wichita State shouldn't have been a 10, and no way Minnesota should have been the highest rated or highest seeded team in the Big Ten.
No way.
How in the world, man?
Well, your point's well taken, James, because like take Tulsa, which is where I attended the game. Kansas and Baylor were penciled into Tulsa for the last 2 months. I mean, we knew those were going to be the 2 top seeds in Tulsa. So they had to then work around the fact that so whatever seed Baylor was, it didn't matter whether they were 2, a 3, or 1.
90
and by the way, in the
seconds.
last month of the season, they fluctuated, right? So but Baylor was going to Tulsa, and Kansas was going to Tulsa, which then manipulated the whole bracket, right? So actually they were 2 different regions, but those quarters of each of those brackets were determined by the fact that Kansas and Baylor were going to Tulsa. And so, whether it was
60 seconds.
And so then you had to go, okay, well, if Baylor's a 3, then you got to send a 6 and 11 to Tulsa. Well, guess what? They went, well, we want SMU and Tulsa, so they made them a 6. Right?
Yeah.
Right? So SMU might really have been a 7 or really have been a 5, but they went, wait a second, we need to get those guys in Tulsa, we're going to make them a 6. So, yes, there are those little movements around the brackets with geography and conference affiliation, right? But at the end of the day, I thought this was a great tournament. I loved every minute of it. I've watched way too many games, and my wife I'm lucky to be married at this point because I've watched that many games. Not only on television,
10
in person, I
seconds.
went to Tulsa. But it's been a wonderful tournament. So, it's been awesome. So I got to check out, guys. It's my time to leave. But Matthew, great interview with Kirk tonight. Enjoyed it, and we'll see what happens national championship this weekend.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Hey James, good talking to you, man.
All right. Take it easy.
Okay, all right. Out of here.
All right, man. Kevin Krest, ladies and gentlemen. To check out his blog, head on over to kevkrestsports.blogspot.com. We also syndicate most of his stuff over on the CHT on sports. But most importantly, head on over to Amazon and Google PK Frazier and just buy all 3 books. Not that much. I think it's like $20-something for all 3 books or something like that. But what? I'm seeing. Hey, James, you are you looking at the call screener right now?
No, not at the moment.
I see somebody that's on hold, and I think it's because Oakland is leaving. I think maybe that's why. Maybe that's why maybe this call is coming because Oakland is leaving, or his washing machine is not flooding, and he finished fixing it 9 months later. One of the two. But either way, I'm gonna bring him on with us. Our lead analyst for college and pro football, Mr. Michael Brewer. How you doing tonight, Mike?
What's going on, man? It's Mike. My new name now is Schoolboy Brewer.
Schoolboy Brewer. Bro, you are too big of a guy to be Schoolboy Brewer. That's like saying Little John.
I got to try to set my income game up. So hopefully.
So your new stage name is Schoolboy Brewer. So when did the leaked video come out?
Until I get my new degree, and then I'll be Dr. Brewer.
Doctor. I like the sound of that. It sounds hotter when I say it to my wife, though. So, good evening, Doctor.
Well, I just want to do that just so I can see through red lights, and I'll be like, I'm a doctor, I'm in a hurry.
That is fiduciary duty to get through this light.
Like stuff like that. Cut people in line in the supermarket. That Raiders thing, that's depressing, though, man.
Why is it depressing? It's fine for me.
Because, like I say,
I might actually go to a Raiders game now. I wasn't going to ever go to Oakland to go to a Raiders game. I might actually go to one now. I think it's a plus. Yes.
And like I say, that's the situation with Charles Oakley in New York. I mean, these owners, they're going to do what they want to do. That's their prerogative. I'm kind of used to it. Like I said, this isn't the first time the Raiders have left. So it's, and I think, like I said, when I was going to the day, there weren't no Raiders there. They were in LA. But, like I say, I just, just for the city right now, it's kind of depressing that Oakland's not doing that good as a city right now. But, my thing is hopefully now I got to see what they're supposed to, like I said, if they got to spend $200 million to keep this team, then, that money needs to be put back to the city.
Yeah.
So now we got to do some Arizona.
So what are they? You think they're going to...
And I have other questions as opposed to, like, why did it take so long for them to get this plan together? I mean, like I said, this is the, this isn't the first...
Almost 60 years later.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about it, if the vote would have went the other way for LA, the Raiders would have been in LA this season. So...
Well, from what I understood, from my research today on kind of on the topic, Jerry Jones has kind of brokered this whole thing. And, the Rams owner didn't want the Raiders in LA, Stan Kroenke. And, he's one of the more influential owners in the league. Obviously, if you're the guy that puts coin down to build your own spot, he kind of has some say. And obviously there's probably more Raiders fans in LA than there are Chargers fans or Rams fans. I think it's pretty safe to say. So he didn't want his new house to be taken over, and not be the most popular team. So that's where he said, "Oh, we can have the Chargers. Yeah, we can have the Chargers. They suck too. So we can one day rise above that. We're from here, so they're they had like one season here ever. So they, they're the guy that said that, I played semi-pro ball. And you really didn't play. You were on the team, and then you quit to get a job. But still, anyways, yeah, I guess whatever. He didn't really live there. I've been to LA. You were in LAX. You weren't actually in LA. You never left the airport. You weren't actually there. You were in the airport. But anyways, you have that one friend that said, "Oh, I've traveled all over these places." You've been in the Cincinnati airport. You've never ever been in Ohio other than that. And don't lie. You don't have to lie to kick it. So, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's largely a positive thing. I mean, these teams, because it was kind of the options, because Stan Kroenke didn't want them there, And Mark Davis didn't want to be the first team to go international, and it would have been Mexico City. Jerry Jones didn't want them in San Antonio because that's way too close to Dallas. And he pulls a lot from the Austin market still, and that's really close to San Antonio. So Vegas was the best option because that's kind of still in their regional niche. You know, Vegas isn't that far away. Nevada is the Silver State. It kind of worked. Sin City, the Black Hole. Yeah, it kind of worked.
I posted an article on Group Chat that my cousin Marcus wrote. To me, like I said,
Tears.
Some of the points you brought up, like I said, it's gonna be kind of iffy on if it's gonna work or not. You got to look at Las Vegas. Las Vegas is a city, that economically is not doing very well. They got hit very hard by the housing market. And like I say, it's not like Las Vegas is a football game. It's just built on gambling. Most of their population is tourists. Like I said, you close down the casinos, Las Vegas goes from a $1 million, a million person city to a 200,000 person city. And like I said, that's talking Vegas. That's talking Vegas.
Yeah.
Henderson, all like I say, so it's like I said, it's gonna. Like I say, it's gonna. Like I say, I don't know. It's a much smaller TV market. Like I say, when you're in the Bay Area, you're in, third or fourth largest market in the country. Going to Las Vegas, where you're in, like I said, relatively small market. Like I said, it could be smaller than San Antonio. And where we have San Antonio is what, third. So it's like, like I say, it's basically what it came down to is they have to, they put up the money. I mean, you have a city that's willing to give. Like I said, the last time I was Las Vegas, I don't see how they, they're getting the money from casinos, but like I say, it didn't. I went to the outskirts. I had a friend who lived out in Henderson, and it did not look that well. Like I said, there's still a lot of empty houses. I mean, seriously, look at that. A lot of empty houses out there, lines of soup kitchens outside, looking like the Great Depression. But I mean, they put together. Pretty much they're giving NFL, $700 to $1 billion to get their team there. And Oakland wasn't willing to do that. My thing, like I say, like I said, the state Oakland's in right now. I'd be kind of pissed if they put together that much money to get to a football game. It's like I think that
Las Vegas is 40. Las Vegas is 40. San Antonio is 31.
Yeah, but in comparison to the Oakland area or the Bay Area being number 6.
Yeah. So I mean that's it's like I said,
But that's it's San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose.
It's not gonna be what people think it is. Like I said, you're gonna look at these Raiders games. Let's look at the games where UNLV is going to play in that stadium. I guarantee you're going to be looking at a half full stadium.
That's true. But how much does this do, though? I mean, just think about this. I know Dave Williams has been on here several times, talked about how much the Orlando Magic changed Orlando. This could be a very viable thing that will happen to Las Vegas. This is.
I don't think Orlando would, Las Vegas is always going to be a gambling city. It's always going to be a casino city. That's never going to change, no matter what. It's not, like I said, it's not going to become a football town. It's not. Like I said, there's simply not the people there. Like I say, you have a city where over 70% of the population stays a week at a time. And you got LA.
So
It's 3.5 hours drive. Which, like I said, also like I said, they're going to be getting that train going from LA to they're going to be getting the high-speed train going from LA to Las Vegas. Which, like I said, that's going to change the whole. I said that in a group chat a couple of times. That's going to change the whole balance of your state race. But until then, I mean, that's
Well, here's the thing: it's it's what from LA. It's only a few hours away. A couple hours to get to Las Vegas. Less than that. I mean, what, 4 hours? 4 hours from. Was it 4 hours from? So, I mean, what's the difference between driving from Tampa? You drive from Tampa to Miami. You drive through the swamp. I mean, the Everglades. I mean,
Now if you go through State Road 60 and then hit up there, you gonna Junction.
yeah.
On the low 75 of that.
You gonna take 75?
And then then also you gotta look at this. The airport in Las Vegas, like I said, it has tons of flights, but those are flights like I said that are already booked for people coming in to gamble. So like I say, I mean, like I said, logistically, like I said, I'm gonna have to see how they're gonna do. I'm gonna have to see what they're gonna do. They're gonna have to do changes. Like I said,
well, let me run over some of the numbers real quick on this. So, that's a guarantee. They're probably looking at 2023, 2024. Oh, that's a guarantee. But the thing is, like, okay, so the costs and stuff involved with they're looking at a $1.9 billion stadium, and $750 million would come from the Clark County hotel room tax. So tourists are paying for $750 million. Now, if again, the estimates are that $35 million per year, they would pay that in 21 years. Well, the Raiders are going to want a new stadium before they're done paying off the other one to the taxpayers. That's a given. And this isn't accounting for what the Nevada Department of Transportation is estimating $899 million in highway upgrades that are going to be needed to facilitate the 450,000 estimated people that they get each year just from the NFL. So it's huge. And it does create 6,000 new permanent jobs, though. That's huge. That's what the governor's looking at. So it's great for politics. It sucks for economics, because economically, it's never going to pay for itself before a new one has to be built or is going to want to be built. And that's the thing is, like, in the particular, yeah. It was supposed to be, there was an intersection of interstates, that one that goes up to Idaho, and then there's one that goes down to Arizona. It was going to be somewhere near that intersection, but I've understood that they have since moved it from there. I don't know exactly where it is. And honestly, this estimate was at the end of this article, and estimates were for the end of January. So very well, those could have been where the old location was. And from the guest that we had on earlier, Kirk McKnight, who's an author, he actually lives in Las Vegas. So he kind of explained some of that stuff, that they moved it to a different location, which is more. I don't. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's like right there where the airport is, basically. Yeah. But like I said, that area in itself. Well, you already said they're gonna have to try to build a new freeway. I was about to say that area.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, but I mean, like I said, yeah, that's it. It's something that sounds good, but I mean, like I said, I don't know, man. I mean, like I say, this, okay, your information, does it show how long of a lease they're going to be signing to stay there?
No, there's no determined lease, just a 65,000 seat stadium, $1.8 billion. The Raiders themselves are going to put up $500 million of it. $750 million will come from the taxpayers, and then from what I've understood is, I believe Bank of America is stepping into the $650 million. Yeah. So we'll.
The lease is probably going to be like, the lease is probably going to be like 20 or 25 years or something like that. I mean, the average like football stadium or, pretty much any sports stadium is kind of like, their shelf life is like, 20 years or so before a new stadium.
Not anymore. It used to be 25 years, and now it's closer to 10 to 15. It's the clock's moved up.
But that's the thing though. If it's gonna be 10 years, so they're gonna have 1.8 billion-dollar stadium that's gonna be up there for 10 years.
Well, no, actually, here's what the UNLV would essentially take over that stadium when the Raiders would build a new stadium. What about Monster Jam? What about Monster Jam? They ain't gonna do Monster Jam in a hotel, in a casino.
My thing is that Las Vegas, that whole Las Vegas area. If you include Henderson and Boulder City and all those other spots, I mean that whole area is not as big as say like a DC, the Beltway in DC, stuff like that. And on top of that, most of that activity is basically on the strip. If you go outside the strip or something like that, you really don't see that much. It's basically
Residential neighborhoods. Yeah.
Yeah, you go to Las Vegas, you got two options. You're either gonna go to Lake Mead or you go to the strip. Yep. You go to the Hoover Dam or you go to the strip. Either one of those, like I say, you're not gonna be, you go to Henderson, you're gonna find a whole bunch of houses and things like that. And like I say, a bunch of homeless people.
Hey, Callie.
What about? Did they say anything about where the hockey team's gonna play? Because I mean, you do have.
That was privately built. That was 100% privately built. Yeah, and actually, they start this year. It's already built.
The Sylvia Ice Arena.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So that's gonna be on the northern half of Las Vegas. So, man.
Hey,
I don't know, man.
Hey, Mike, how far is it to Reno? How far do you think it is from Las Vegas to Reno?
That's night and day. Reno is Northern California. Reno is northern Nevada. Reno is 2 hours from. Reno is 2 hours from my house. That's south to north, man. Yeah, Reno is closer. Like I said, Reno. Like I said, Reno is closer to me than Vegas is to LA. And like I said, I'm about 9 or so hours away from Vegas. Hey, so like I said, Reno. You're never gonna drive from Reno to Las Vegas.
It's like 5 hours.
Reno is closer to San Francisco than it is to Las Vegas, man. Yeah, way closer. Not yet. Yep. And like I said, Las Vegas Airport is not the biggest in the airport. Like I said, I just don't know, man. I mean, for being a Raiders fan, like I said, being from Oakland, I'm kind of not worried about it. Like I said, because I'm 99% sure that if there's ever going to be another team moving, like I say, if they have an owner that has that has the money behind them, like I say, the market there is too big not to have a team in it. So I'm coming, like I said, I'm not, and I did not want the city to put up that much money.
Yeah.
Like I say, it was just too much money. Like I say, I think a lot of times, they kind of hold the city hostage. And it's like so.
One thing the guest brought up.
Here's the thing with Oakland, because they're going to be losing the Raiders in 2 years, and then I guess either that same year or the next year, then the Warriors are going to move over to the San Francisco side. So and we got to figure out what we're going to do with the A's. So it's like, like I say, the A's. I mean, like I said, when you talk about loyalty to the city's going to go with the A's over the Raiders. Not because of, the Raiders, football is going to bring in the big money, but A's, like I said, they've been there. Yep. They've been there. And like I say, and like I said,
I haven't really
you gotta-
heard, and you haven't really heard about them, threatening to move or anything like that ever since they've been there. Ever since they moved there.
Oh,
like I said,
they've had talks of wanting out of the lease and of selling the team. There's been talks. Major League Baseball had to intervene between Oakland and the Athletics to make sure that they could stay in the stadium, because when they were talking the extension with, because when they did the extension, they were talking about, because the Raiders said they wanted a new stadium, and they were saying, yeah, we'll get you a new stadium. But then at the same time, they just negotiated a new extended lease. So essentially, they would demolish where the Athletics would be playing to build a Raiders stadium. And then where would the Athletics play? They weren't even concerned about that. So as much as the city has not given any respect and have just been complete and utter BS with the Raiders, it's been even worse with the Athletics.
Yeah. Tear down in my mind, it would have torn down the arena and built this new arena right there where the old arena was. And then after that, tear down the Coliseum and build a new stadium right there. I don't know if you guys have seen the arena and the Coliseum are right next to each other.
No, I haven't.
You can tear down one. Yeah, they're not. They're literally 100 feet away from each other. Oh wow!
Yeah, I stopped at Redlands, California when I started traveling north. So we turned around, went back to San Diego.
That's what was mind-boggling me so much. Is like, okay, they're talking about moving all this and that. That's why I'm saying a lot of that was bullshit. Because, like I say, all they would have to do, like I say, literally, gonna have an empty arena next year. So it's like tear this down, and just have the Raiders already signed to the Coliseum for 2 years. Just tear down the arena and build your new one right there. It wouldn't affect anything. And then afterwards, you can tear down this other one and just build another Coliseum. Like I said, they're literally right next to each other.
Yankee Stadium, they did the same thing. They basically had a parking lot next to Yankee Stadium where they started building the new Yankee Stadium and then demolished the old one.
Yep, and it went seamlessly. But like I said, that that would have been ideal. But like I said, I think there was more behind it. I mean, you have Mark Davis, who was saying he didn't have any money to stay in Oakland, but as soon as Vegas comes up now.
Well, that's not it. That's not it. That's the thing is, like, he went to them, but he went to them. He said that, hey, it's been since 1960 since the stadium was built. We haven't had the upgrades. We haven't had, a new stadium built. And they said, you know what? We're not going to build your new stadium. And then they tripled his rent there. Like, the city council there has royally effed over the Bay Area. It's the same thing that's happening here in St. Pete. Now there's nowhere to. Yeah.
It's Alameda County's arena. But also, like I said, you also have to realize the arena been there since 1960. But yes, but the Raiders have only been back in Oakland for about 10 or, like I said, they just came back in what, 90, when did they come back? 90, 97? So
I don't know.
They only been back, like I said, 15. And the arena, like I said, the arena was remodeled about.
How remodeled? I hear it's the worst. It's the worst stadium in sports.
I mean, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't. But like I said, to me, like I said, when the Raiders pulled, leaving and then coming back, like I said, and like they should have been willing to work with the team. Like I said, he's putting up this $500 million, for Las Vegas.
What kind of an idiot leaves and goes back to the same old dump? Like what? Like, how dumb is that?
So you got this $500 million. Then the relocation fee, which is what, another
$500
$300 million?
million.
That's another $500 million. So basically, that, I mean, like I say, you got $1 billion going around. I mean, like I say, it was, to me, it was too many options. go to Vegas, because the city was willing to put up more money than the owner was, wanted to put up, But like I said, I honestly doubt they're going to be there for that whole 20, 25 years, whatever that
The
is.
thing is, he didn't like it wasn't. Well, that's the thing is that the Alameda County, the county put up 500, I think 501 acres. So 501 acres and 200 million is what they were able to come up with to offer them. But the stipulation is you have to share it with the athletics. And they're like, no, we don't want to share with the baseball team. If it was another football team, they would have entertained that, and that's why, but the whole thing is where I was explaining earlier, Jerry Jones is the guy that has pretty much been brokering all these new stadiums and where teams have been moving. Because, he doesn't want his buddy sharing a stadium with the Raiders because he'll be outshined. It's kind of been that whole thing. And with the Levi Stadium, he owns that he owns the company that does the marketing for them. All the marketing and event planning and endorsements. This is like his company does that. So if his company pulls out, and again, I think a person from his company is actually the general manager currently of the San Francisco 49ers. So if you're saying that well, he's not going to let him build something as nice as his. You think so? I mean, he's brokering it. Well, also it's in Texas, so it's going to be a lot more because it's.
But I mean, the King Stadium is nicer than the Five Stadium.
You want to hear something funny? So everybody with the Raiders basically in 2 years, if they're still on the staff, they get like a 13% raise basically because they don't have any more state tax. So it's.
I mean, like I said, like you said earlier, financially, it's good, but we're gonna have to see how it turns out.
Well, financially for the NFL and for the Davis family and for, fans and the growing sport, it's good. Economically, it won't pay for itself because in 21 years is what it's going to take for them to pay it back at 35 million a year, but they're going to want something new in 10 to 15 or want more upgrades then, and then you're going to have to find subsidies for that. So,
well, like I said earlier, it's a small market. I mean, I have questions. I mean, I'm looking at I was thinking the other day, look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, man. They already been there. What? It's already been almost 10 years.
Yep, pretty close to that.
Like, so, Russell, what's the Westbrook plan? How long do that franchise is ready to move?
I mean, they're 41 right now. Market.
Oklahoma City is not a major market. Not a lot of people.
There's actually like 5,000 more people than Norfolk.
And where?
Norfolk, Portsmouth, Newport. You always got some shenanigans going on, Mike. Schoolboy Mike in the streets. Oh no, 2 weeks ago. So get this. So 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago now. Shit, time just flies. So 3 weeks ago, I'm on air on Tuesday, and the gas station a block away, somebody robbed the gas station, and you could just hear. It's just like helicopters flying. I'm like doing a show. I'm like, yeah. Whole show. The whole show. Lights flashing. I felt like turning my lights off and hiding. I'm like, you know, exactly. I know. I'm like, shit. I went back to my lanai by the pool and locked the gates, like, you know, the little screen gates. I locked those. I know. Locked all that. Turn on extra lights. Don't climb my fence. I will tell on you. What are you looking at? You can just keep on. You're the crazy guy with guns. You're like, he didn't even have a dog. He runs around in some white prison issue looking boxers barking and stuff to scare neighbor kids off and cats. And Mike lives in the suburbs too. That's the crazy part. How many people own trucks on your street, Mike? Just me. In Northern California, not Southern California.
That's why I like Northern California, man. I don't know. I was just thinking the other day, if I could go back down to SoCal, while I'm trying to do this grad school thing. But then I'm like, nah, I just have to stay up here.
Yeah.
I'm using it to my like, I was looking at these grad schools ridiculous.
There's always online.
Yeah. I don't know. I want to get there. That's why I'm putting myself back in. Taking a couple little warm-up classes. I want to get back in school mode. Hands-on. Well, even that's the other thing. Even the grad school is still $40,000.
That's crazy.
A semester. Yeah. Well, at least for that much, I want to have a teacher yelling at me in my face. Asking why I ain't great. But like I said earlier, I'm looking at, Oklahoma City, I think that could be a team that, a city that could lose that team pretty damn soon.
You see within 5 to 7 years?
I can easily see those. Like I think, I was just thinking, it's like I say, it's been, time has went by so quick, but it's already been, Westbrook's 9-year vet, He came there the first year. Yep, if he leaves, if people are thinking he's going to do, I mean, they got no star. Once Durant left, like I said, that was a big blow to that team. Like, teams like that just don't get, like I said, the Sacramento Kings, with their trading away of DeMarcus Cousins, markets just don't get superstars,
Yeah, they don't get them or they don't keep them. And
Exactly.
I think, if
DeMarcus Cousins is not a superstar.
New Orleans could have lost Anthony Davis. Right then.
They will lose Anthony Davis. They will. They will lose him. He will not stay in New Orleans. No.
but what point guard are they gonna get?
I don't know, man. Well, they need, like I said, in my opinion, they need a true point guard. Not, they don't need, one of these shoot firsts. They need somebody in there to spread the ball out.
They need Brewer, right? Is that what you're saying? You're saying they need Brewer?
No, I'm more of a, Shaquille O'Neal type power center. I dunk as often and win often dunk as often as I can. They need like a Chris Paul. They need like a Chris Paul part two.
No, I'm just say Chris Paul's not going back to New Orleans.
They ain't gonna have Chris Paul back where he was.
I was talking about Ronnie Brewer, not Corey Brewer. Ronnie Brewer.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Mike. I thought you were talking about Mike Brewer.
Oh, no, I'm just talking about Ronnie Brewer from Chicago. Because I think Chicago is going to unload him.
They don't unload a lot of people. Chicago's gonna end up unloading a lot of people, especially if they end up missing the playoffs. Because you would think, being in the Eastern Conference, that they would at least, be like a 4 or 5 or something like that. But now, they're like 6 or 7. They still, are floating around there with Detroit and those. So, I don't know.
And that's, like I said, that's a perfect example of a team in a big market that's struggling because they don't have a real superstar. I mean, Jimmy Butler is an excellent basketball player, but he's not a star though. Their last star was D Rose.
He wasn't even really a star. He was he was a guy that was never going to be viable as a point guard. He had to be a shooting guard. He's like another Allen Iverson, just didn't last as long. That's just it. That's the problem. He's too small and too slight. He had to play too hard, and it just doesn't work in the NBA. It doesn't, it doesn't last. You awe over it and commend it while it happens, but it's short-lived. It's just not big enough to take the punishment and keep going. It's just not. There's limitations on things.
I think he was just, some guys just have that injury bug. You look at what's his name, Brandon Ross, whatever, Brandon Roy.
Yeah.
He was a good size dude, but he just stayed fucking injured. He just, he wasn't a real technical whole type of dude.
Yeah, I guess. He had some years there in Portland, though.
Well, shit, what? On a board.
But they were good while he was there. Like, they looked good while he was there,
Well,
Did they had Pippen there for couple of those years, didn't they?
Hell no, Pippen.
Now, who did he have there with? I guess. No, I guess. That's what I'm saying. Now, who did they have there?
They had
Who was it?
Noah when he was half decent.
In Portland?
Oh, you talking about Portland?
Yes. That's what I was asking. No, I was talking about Portland.
I don't think Pippen was in Portland either when Roy was there. Brandon Roy got drafted, 2000?
When did Pippen retire? What year did Pippen retire? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Pippen retired.
No, Pippen had to be long gone before then.
No, it was. When did he retire? Yes. When did he retire?
Dude, he retired in 2000, man. He retired before Jordan.
2004. 2004. It's not that damn far off. He was there in 2006 to 2010. Come on. Yeah. Oh, it's 2 years later. You make it sound like it was a decade earlier. Come on. I knew it wasn't that far apart. 2003 he was. But he retired in 2004. He went back to Chicago for 1 year. But he was there from 99 to 2003 in Portland. He was there for a minute.
I thought he was only there for like a second when they had
Nah.
Wallace find you up on a field before jail.
He was there for a minute. Because they was talking, because the whole line was he couldn't do it without Jordan. He went there to be the man because they were going to pay him and put him in that role, and he couldn't get it. Brandon Roy was a couple years after that. Yeah.
Hey, you guys see that your boy franchise is trying to play in this big 3 league, man?
What?
What that ice cube thing?
Yes.
And I'm interested how that's gonna end up, man. Because
I gotta see this. I gotta see now if the franchise is gonna be in it. I'm like, hold up. Because last time I saw him, he looked like he might have been on the mic.
yeah, for real, seriously.
Okay, my goodness.
Talking about a dude that like fell out hard. That was the dude that fell off hard, man.
Man, I mean, some of these dudes, like I said, I can look at Iverson. And be like, all right, Iverson's probably going to be in shape. You know, you can tell Iverson probably is going to be cut to it and doesn't even exercise that much to stay in shape. But franchise started looking bad. You know?
Hold on. I'm looking at this article right now. It says it's going to have Allen Iverson, Kenyon Martin, Roger Mason, Rashard Lewis. Ice Cube's going to play in it. Mike Bibby, Chauncey Billups, Jermaine O'Neal. I believe Jermaine O'Neal. He'll just play anywhere. He's established that already. He still plays pickup games, I swear.
Oh, Chauncey Billups.
Yeah. It's the New York Times.
I think Rasheed Wallace.
Mike Bibby, though? Yeah. Mike Bibby, like 45 years old.
All the dudes are 45 years
I know. All of them.
Mike Bibby 1996 is when Arizona won the championship.
Yeah.
Bibby's probably like 38.
I had me a Bibby jersey. Not gonna lie, I had one.
Like 38, 39.
Oh, seriously, you said what? Yeah, he's about 38.
Man, I saw. We were at the Y, had all the Tampa Y leagues, the champions. They had a championship tournament, and they had 11, 12-year-old league. Man, these 11, 12-year-olds were like almost all 6 foot. And I was talking to the coach. I was like, where the hell do you find so many big ass 11-year-olds? And he's like, I don't know, man. You know, we're out here in Valrico. I was like, are they Puerto Rican? Am I going to have to check the birth certificates on them? And he just started laughing. And I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty you got me laugh. But it was crazy. They were huge. And one kid kind of looked like Mike Bibby coming down the court. I was like, he handles the ball way too good and shoots. He was pulling from 3-point range as 11-year-old. And I'm like, yeah. Bringing these kids in from out of state to play in a Y League. What people won't do. Yeah. He's trying to salvage this as long as he can. And so, did you hear the news? So, speaking of eternal players, Kraft divulged some information. He was really excited. He talked to Tom Brady, and Tom Brady assured him he could play for another 7 to 8 years. Yeah, what? Interesting.
When a player says something like that at his age, with kids that are his age, you know, it's like I kind of wonder what's wrong. I mean,
He wants to play in the league with his kids. That's what he's trying to do. That's ultimately.
He could quit right now and go down as maybe the greatest quarterback of all time. I mean, he's got nothing else to prove, and he's getting less and less money every year as he restructures all his contracts. So you got to wonder what his mindset is. You know,
Like he's trying to play forever or something like that.
yeah, you're not getting any healthier.
Didn't he like have like some type of trouble in that 1 year? I thought it was the year that they lost to Denver in the AFC title game. I thought he had some issues then.
Well, that's you know, I don't want to besmirch a guy like Tom Brady, but you also got to wonder if like, dude, how are you still playing at this level and at this age? Yeah, I mean, he got injured, but he got injured with ACL and shit when he gets tackled, but he's not showing signs of wearing down. Which
Well, he
like that 1 year for like 4 games, and then next thing you know, he started throwing rocket balls.
Well, that's the thing is like his velocity has diminished. He doesn't have the same velocity he's had, and he pretty much just throws bubble screens. It's 15-yard outs and bubble screens. It's not like it's a lot of deep throws for him. So
Football, I mean, like I said, a deep throw is one thing, but a 15-yard out is a very difficult throw to make.
but that's an accurate throw. Yeah, but it's an accuracy throw, so his timing can be there. And those 15-yard outs, what they're doing is they're running rub routes on those 15 yards outs to get him open, because that creates time for him, because he doesn't have the same velocity as he used to.
Yeah.
Think about it.
I don't know, man. Like I said, I haven't seen him fall off that much. Like I said, that's where like I'm starting to question.
And by the way, he doesn't drink any alcohol. It's like paleo diet with him, Not a single carb, or I don't know what it is. It's crazy. Like, he obviously spends a lot of money on taking care of himself. But there could be, oh yeah, there we go. There's also that. He could also be doping. I don't know. Ever since Lance Armstrong. Yep. Yeah.
Remember who good friends? Lance Armstrong was good friends with Tom Brady. Most of them the same thing about Lance Armstrong. He does this and that, and turned out he was doping. So,
That every time I hear Lance Armstrong, it's funny because I think of the movie Ted, where his girlfriend's boss had Lance Armstrong's ball bronzed. You ever? Oh, stupid movies. Tom Brady's. Yeah.
and then it was like, oh yeah, I just never heard of him. I mean, I haven't heard of him in like 7 years.
Exactly. It's been a long time.
Not only like all the other people on like the next dude.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Even Bobcat pops up and does a comedy set here and there. I mean, and we're talking the other day about like how they would recast movies. Like who would be, what movies to recast? How would you ever recast Bobcat in a movie? Like such. Yeah.
You would have to change the whole character. I guess they couldn't get anybody to do it. The funny thing about Bobcat is that's surprisingly hot chick, man. My goodness. I used to see some of the chicks he was like if I was like he was with that one chick that married I can't think of her name. She was like on a TV show and she was like hot for like years. She kinda got plastic surgery and kinda looks crazy now. But he was with her for like the longest time. He used to get some hot chicks, man. But I
I think a lot of that was on this 80s rap.
Kind of like Pauly Shore.
Yeah. You know, Bobcat, he was in the 80s, man.
And what about Trading Spaces? The movie Trading Spaces. How would you? Who would play Eddie Murphy? Would that have to be Chris Hart now?
Oh, you know, Kevin Hart?
Kevin Hart, yeah.
I don't think, you know, some roles that people just make classic, those are, you know, that's their role. You know what I mean? Like I said, to me, Trading Places is, you know, one of the top, you know, probably top 5 funniest movies of all time. You know, and, you know, like I said, him or Aykroyd, I couldn't see anybody replace either one of them. Yeah.
What's
You know, not just start to do all these remakes. Also, you know, it's like you can remake a movie and it'll, you know, but it's like that actor was the one that, you know, it's like you just can't remake a movie and just expect it to be the same movie or be good. You know, it's like
But the thing is,
was really good in the first one.
if they did, Dan Aykroyd would probably have to be like Steve Carell, and then have Chris Hart take Eddie Murphy's part, or Kevin Hart.
I would not go see that.
You wouldn't?
You know, and it's not because I don't I like Steve Carell. I halfway like Kevin Hart, you know, sometimes, but you know, that wouldn't appeal to me like the, you know, Eddie, you know, the way Eddie, you know, they had pretty good chemistry in that. You know, the funny thing is too, which would have, like I said, would have made a funny movie even funnier. Eddie Murphy was supposed to play the Winston in Ghostbusters, but something happened.
Oh, that's messed up.
You know, like I said, you know, you can only imagine how hilarious that would have been. You know.
Why go all chicks on Ghostbusters? I didn't get that.
Oh my goodness, dude, I hate that movie. You know what I get mad to? It's like I wish they would have named it something else, like She-Busters or something. Because every time I'm on the program, guys,
She-Busters is going to be the next Remy Ma drop.
every time I'm on the TV, guys look at the channel that Ghostbusters. I turn it on there, and I'm like, oh crap, it's because I turn it on.
Son of a bitch.
Seriously, like where the hell is that was just a fail. That was just a.
Yeah, I think it was kind of, what was the, yeah, because they try to do Bridesmaids, and I feel like that was kind of, you know, an epic fail too, because they wanted to do Hangover, but they called it Bridesmaids, and it just wasn't, it didn't.
Well, and like I said, you know, I mean, you know, you can't just take any characters and throw them together and expect to replace Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and you know, all those other guys. You know, it's like, you know, you just can't do that. You know, just because you're putting, you know, Melissa McCarthy and Leslie Jones and that other, those 2 other chicks, it's like, you know, it's not gonna work.
And the other chicks that weren't SNL.
It's just not gonna work. You know, people don't want to see that kind of garbage.
When does?
Wonder who came up with that idea to just say, hey, I mean, these 4 look good together in the movie. Let's remake Ghostbusters with them in it.
Well, the way you can look at how these Hollywood executives do, go look at those emails that were released from the Sony executive when their emails got hacked. You can see how small-minded and racist and unimaginative these Hollywood executives really are. You know. I mean, like I said, you know, if I was an actor after reading those emails, I don't even know if I could act. You know, because like I said, that whole thing, you know, and like I said, surprisingly, that was a woman who wrote those emails. You know,
Well, I mean, this is Hollywood, so I'm not, you know, of course, I'm not necessarily surprised about anything going on in Hollywood, but that's just me.
yeah.
So if there are movies, what old movies would you want them to remake? What's worth remaking?
It would have to be a whole
Jaws?
that wasn't really that good. But you could have saw the potential in it.
Well,
Right.
it's not Happy Gilmore Overboard.
Treat it as a legendary movie. You know, like stuff like Gone with the Wind, The Wizard of Oz, or
Ghost.
something like that. Just can't relate.
Could Ghost ever be Ghost without Whoopi?
It could never be without Patrick Swayze. Yeah, you know. Or like Color Purple, which was other one. I ain't even gonna say. You know what? I'm not even gonna go.
It's too soon. It's too soon.
A lot of people replace Whoopi Goldberg and Oprah Winfrey. A good movie to remake would be something like. You ever see Bustin' Loose with Richard Pryor?
Yeah.
You know, when he's dropping that bus to those kids, it could be a movie like that.
Or any.
What? Oh, I thought there was like, yeah, that one, or, man, I know they would do remake a Ghost Dad or some crazy like that. Or
It's funny that they probably do want to redo all Cosby movies so they don't have to link him to anything. Is he?
Yep.
Watch, he's gonna come back and start doing raunchy comedy. I got arrested. Fuck you all.
Or anything like that. Everything has been quiet.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Well, that's all for the show tonight. We got cut off over on Blog Talk. We'll wrap it up here over on YouTube and on Spreaker, SoundCloud. Thank you all for listening. Kevin Krest, go over and check out his blog at kevkrest.blogspot.com. Go get the book, Kevin McKnight's book. Great book. I'm just getting started with it. I love everything that I've seen so far. And you get those on Amazon. PK Frazier, Kevin's book, PK Frazier novels. You can get those over on Amazon as well. Kirk's book is called The Voices of Baseball. So it's something really history of baseball. Really brings me back to kind of the childhood aspect of baseball. So I look forward to talking more about it next week. Head over to the website, thechtonsports.com, to catch all versions of this shows on the Listen Live link in the left upper left-hand corner. If you are on YouTube, right over the microphone, go ahead and click on that and subscribe. If you are not on YouTube, get your ass over to YouTube and click on the button right above the microphone and subscribe. And over to the side over here, there are some also some other clips. Click on, watch them, enjoy them. By the way, we do not get paid from YouTube for any of our videos. So in case you guys are wondering, I'm trying to pull more, you want to get money from this. That is not the case. YouTube does not pay us any money for anything, any of the endorsements and stuff that you hear on any of our shows are all our actual endorsements, be products and stuff that we use. So appreciate it. Catch you next week. I'm out.